this child reborn, inside the frame of your descendant a millennium from now. Previously, he held the title of the world's strongest man, but ultimately passed away from aging. Upon rising in the future, he realized one truth. In this realm, the jungle's law prevails, and the sole individual he can rely on is himself. Thus, he started to train tirelessly. Sieg consumed monster blood. He raised rocks using his feet, bounded for kilometers. As he raised the intensity of his training, everything to create the ideal physique. Currently, he will not compete at the academy. He will overpower all other students with sheer brute force. He constantly pursued the highest level of martial arts, yet he understood it was an unattainable summit. To contest that truth, he held onto an age-old legend handed down through generations. The tale described a refuge, watched over by a celestial dragon that safeguarded a golden fruit. The warrior was astonished to realize that such an object genuinely existed. After a lengthy journey, he at last reached the sacred tree to seize his reward. Before him lay the mythical fruit of immortality, radiating a brilliant golden glow. The man felt drained and injured, yet the sense of triumph was beginning to envelop him. He perched on the dragon's form and softly declared that he had ultimately triumphed over the beast. He struggled painfully toward the tree, groaning as he moved due to his injuries. As he grasped the fruit, he declared that it would enable him to attain the summit he had always envisioned. The man, without a moment's pause, sank his teeth into the fruit with all his determination. His name was disclosed as Gilphus Eldragon, the individual celebrated as the strongest in the entire world. Years later, the setting shifts to a castle, accompanied by a speech bubble indicating that it was merely a matter of time. A family congregates in the bedroom, hoping that the elderly patriarch can leave this world peacefully. Gilliam, the oldest son, calls out to his father on his deathbed. Old Gilphus advises his son not to make that expression, as his time has arrived. In response, the son expresses that the home will feel vacant without both his father and mother present. Gilphus considers that sentimental nonsense, reminiscing about the tree from his childhood. He believes that ultimately the legend was merely a tale, yet he was fortunate to have a family. He bids farewell to his son with a smile, expressing that he has had a long, fulfilling life. Observing those nearby, he reassures himself that he feels no regrets. However, that was a significant falsehood, since he indeed had regrets, without a doubt. Deep inside, he merely longed for a bit more time to achieve his dream. In his mind, he cries out, pleading fervently for another opportunity to survive. In his final moments, he continues to strive for the martial arts summit he longed for deeply. Thus, with his son weeping, the life of Gilphus Eldragon was meant to conclude. However, destiny had different plans, and abruptly his awareness stirs within the form of an infant. He ponders whether he had been in slumber and why his body now feels so weightless. Then, upon glancing at his hand, he recognizes it resembles that of a newborn. Stunned by the situation, he understands he has reverted to being a baby. He attempts to soothe himself to comprehend the situation, as someone of his caliber shouldn't be experiencing this. Recalling his previous existence, he realizes that this circumstance is far from ordinary. He contemplates who might be responsible for this and, most importantly, how it all occurred. Suddenly, a spark ignites in his mind, and a doubt starts to take shape in his thoughts. Might it be that the reason for all this was that golden fruit he consumed? He realizes that the true power lies not in immortality, but in the ability to reincarnate. Wearing a triumphant grin, he revels in the fortune of finally achieving his objective. Observing his surroundings, he sees multiple other infants present in the same space. He concludes that he has been reborn into the Eldragon family, yet is puzzled by the presence of so many infants. At that instant, several maids enter the chamber, maneuvering a cart laden with baby bottles. A maid from the Eldragon family declares it's time to tend to and feed the children. However, unexpectedly, one of them drags in a goblin, thrashing and wailing in utter despair. Gilphus is taken aback to witness them, compelling the goblin to consume a peculiar red liquid. The fluid causes the creature's form to illuminate before it ultimately bursts apart. The goblin remains scattered everywhere, splashing our hero with blood. Without grasping the situation, he listens as a maid mentions that it should be fine diluted. One of them lifts him, and he is baffled by the situation. The woman holds a bottle nearer, but he soon understands it's not milk. The crimson liquid brimmed with dreadful magical energy, and they were offering it to the infants. He struggles with all his might, but his baby instincts overpower him. Then he recalls that he is indeed a baby, and his body starts to consume it before he can intervene. However, upon tasting it, he identifies the flavor and questions why they are providing dragon blood. At last, he comprehends what they referred to as diluted. He must expel it, yet he thinks that a tiny bit won't be lethal to him. The other infants instinctively reject it, and he realizes he must follow suit or he will burst. Yet for a moment, he considers if that would truly be the best decision to make at this time. This was his opportunity, as absorbing this power would allow him to exceed his previous self and achieve success. With unwavering resolve, he chooses to consume all the blood in a single gulp. He is unsure why this is occurring, but as fortune has favored him, he intends to seize this opportunity. With that, an outrageous red energy starts to surge into the tiny baby's body. Yet the energy is so intense that his body can't cope, causing him to bleed profusely. In his mind, he yells that they should have never looked down on Gil Ruidoris. He quickly amends his thoughts, exclaiming that they must not underestimate Gilphus L. Dragon. The maid is utterly stunned by the surprising response from the small infant. He will harness all this energy to ultimately attain the summit he was unable to in his previous life. An image of a white dragon emerges, revealing the origin of the energy he was devouring. He recalls a memory of a historic clash between two mythical beings. A voice notes that the infant is peacefully taking in all, creating a beneficial scenario for them. Returning to the crib, he reflects on how he somehow endured all that strength. He notices the other baby is alive but grumbles about the fragility of an infant's body. However, after exerting himself greatly, an unexpected drowsiness overwhelms him, leading to his slumber. 7 years later, we hear someone counting as they train intensely. We then observe a boy maintaining his balance while hoisting a massive rock with one hand. He delivers a strong upward kick, launching the rock into the sky with great power. He jumps up and breaks the rock with a single punch while airborne. He takes a moment to appreciate his physique, attributing it to the ancient dragon's blood. We learn that this power resides within every living creature on the planet. The dragon blood consumed by Zeke and his companions held vast amounts of strength. As a result, the infants who absorbed the substance developed bodies significantly more powerful than those of ordinary humans. With the strength he possessed, Zeke took it all in and underwent a startling transformation. Yet, despite all his hard work, he believes he has merely attained the strength of a single star. He grumbles that he ought to possess 4 stars, which is power pushed to its maximum. One envisions the body as a cosmos, and the more stars they attain, the stronger their power grows. And in his previous existence as Gilphys, he attained the 10-star level, uniquely achieving this distinction. He reflects on the swift passage of time, noting that 7 years have gone by since his rebirth. His mother passed away many years ago, and his father never bothered to visit him. He ponders the nature of the negligent father he was given. Reincarnated a millennium into the future, he finds himself in a realm where the powerful consume the powerless. The most compelling evidence of this is a ceremony familiar to everyone called the Trial of the Dragon. Only the infants who endured all challenges were to be trained as the family's warriors. However, when he confronts the maid, he understands that something in this entire narrative is off. She claims she is unable to respond, and in 7 years, no teacher has trained the boy. He shouts that it's odd, as those who pass the test ought to get combat training. However, he relaxes, stating that enhancing his physique is his priority at the moment. He inquires about the family, yet she reiterates that she cannot provide answers. Frustrated, the boy questions if that's the only response she can give him consistently. The maid feels intimidated by his presence, but asserts that she lacks the liberty to respond. He inquires whether she is being treated poorly, to which she clarifies that she merely obeys explicit commands. Zeke understands she is a 3-star fighter, sufficient for training. He surrenders and mentions he will head to the forest, feeling the absence of interaction is quite odd. As he prepares to depart, he observes that she is now just disregarding him. The boy steps into a forest brimming with plants and an enchanting light, completely alone. He swiftly extracts a toxic plant directly from the earth using his bare hand. To build his resistance, he consumes the plant without hesitation. He grumbles about the unpleasant flavor, yet acknowledges that the bitterness contributes to his training. With a determined gaze, he believes patience is essential for reaching his objectives. Yet while he sprints, he grumbles that the forest roots persistently chase after him. He was surprised they arrived and instructs them to simply express their desires. The boy conceals himself in the bushes, anticipating what will occur next. Abruptly, he feels an entity and understands something is near. He silently watches through the leaves of the bush with vigilant eyes. At that moment, a furious boar emerges, radiating a dark purple aura. He observes the dark fog and remarks that this phenomenon was absent from the world a millennium ago. The beast scents the earth, searching for the path of its concealed quarry. However, the creature discovers him and releases a sinister force that permeates the woods. The boar swiftly charges directly at the boy without wasting any time. Smiling confidently, he readies himself to confront the creature without a hint of fear. He evades the boar's strike with remarkable agility for someone of his age. His fist starts to radiate light as he readies a counterattack enveloped in a golden aura. With one precise punch, he strikes the creature directly and swiftly overcomes throws it. He gazes at his hand, remarking that even a gentle touch can lead to such destruction. Feeling weary of solitude, he considers embarking on a global adventure. He resolves that if he travels anywhere, his ultimate destination will surely be the ocean. Concealed, a man believes the boy is unusual for possessing a star without any training. It is stated that Zeke lacked an education because his mother passed away and his father was indifferent. The observer finds everything quite intriguing, as the boy belongs to the master's lineage. The scene shifts back to the enchanting forest filled with towering trees. Meanwhile, at his home, the boy gets ready to embark on his long-awaited adventure. As he approaches the door, he feels powerful presences and questions who might be inside. He learns that chaos is unwarranted since it doesn't appear to be an assassination scheme. Upon opening the door, he inquires about their intentions and spots the Eldragon family crest. Noticing the uniforms, his curiosity grows regarding their purpose for being there. One of the men advances, ready to address the boy. The leader expresses his pleasure in meeting him and mentions that Zeke has a significant exam to undertake. The boy is astonished and echoes the word exam in his mind, completely bewildered. Panic sets in as he struggles to comprehend the situation. He then yells at the top of his lungs, expressing frustration that no one mentioned this before. He finds it hard to accept that he has returned to the main house after a lengthy 1,700 years. The boy was positioned before the entrance of his family's enormous castle. An emissary brought him from his residence and instructed him to change his attire before he could access the grounds. Next, we observe the Eldragon family emblem displaying a golden dragon and 2 crossed swords. The family set up an establishment known as the Dragon's Nest, and today marked the entrance exam. He feels furious because the exam is happening today and nobody took the time to instruct him. However, taking the exam is compulsory, which is why he was brought from the frontier. The boy falls to the ground, utterly crushed by his circumstances. He grumbles that they orchestrated this just as he was ready to escape, having prepared everything in advance. Hunched down on the ground, he experiences frustration as his plans fall apart at the final moment. However, a boy named Langus comes over, inquiring if he is alright or facing difficulties. The boy states he approached to assist since Zeke appeared genuinely anxious. Zeke appears puzzled and gazes at the boy with blue hair, not grasping what's happening. He observes that the boy appears timid but truly possesses great bravery. He rises from his thoughts and offers an apology for his distraction. He smiles and introduces himself as Zeke, mentioning he was just uncertain about their tasks. Langus responds that the exam's content typically remains consistent annually. However, Zeke admits he knows nothing about the exam, leaving Langus feeling both shocked and anxious about the situation. At that moment, a bully appears, loudly taunting poor Langus by calling him a shrimp in public. The boy with blue hair feels fear wash over him as he recognizes his challenger. It's Retin, a local from the same village, who taunts Langus to return home and tend to children. Langus hesitates, insisting he's there for the exam, but Retin shouts in disbelief at his words. They both yell that it's unthinkable for someone of his background to qualify, especially with a father who is merely an imitation dragon. Zeke silently observes the situation, his fist tightly clenched. The Eldragon family operates under a hierarchy where newcomers are referred to as lesser dragons. The adult dragons hold the captain class, while the executives are termed elders. At the lowest tier are the imitation dragons, those who couldn't gain entry to the nest. They are derisively labeled imitations and regarded as the lowest of the family. However, Langus expresses his desire to demonstrate that they are not the frauds everyone claims. Zeke then inquires about his motivation, and the boy meets his gaze with unwavering resolve. Zeke defends Langus, questioning how they can judge since the boy hasn't made an attempt. Retin inquires about his identity, and Zeke replies that he simply wants to understand why it would be deemed impossible for Langus. The bully yells at them, claiming it's only because they are all too weak. Langus is taken aback by the offense, while Zeke contemplates the true meaning of weakness. Exuding a strong presence, he believes Langus is far more powerful than they are. Zeke's self-assurance is evident in the astonished expression of his new blue-haired companion. Furious, the boy yells, questioning if Zeke suggests they are lesser. Retin slams his foot down onto the ground, expressing his anger and frustration. The brawl is abruptly halted when one of the examiners calls for silence. He declares the exam is commencing and instructs all candidates to proceed to the second gate. The bully departs with his crew, threatening to remember Zeke's face. Zeke comments on the fiery nature of today's youth, but Langus points out that they share the same age. Langus states that anyone would feel anger upon discovering someone else was more powerful. Zeke pauses briefly, contemplating whether things are truly as they seem. He finds it odd that they claim it's impossible when the entrance exam is compulsory. Langus clarifies that one can withdraw if lacking the ability, leaving leaving Zeke visibly stunned. He then proposes that perhaps it's wiser to forfeit to avoid Zeke facing any potential harm. However, Zeke insists that someone of his caliber cannot quit and urges his friend to hurry to the exam. The boy with blue hair nods in agreement, though he remains somewhat anxious about the situation. The examination is fairly straightforward, and the examiner clarifies that all you need to do to succeed is scratch one of the rocks. With a suspicious grin, the man states they will only have 3 attempts. Zeke believes the test is overly simple, while Langus beside him is filled with panic and despair. He recalls the dragon's blood and anticipated the exam to be far more frightening. Glancing at his top card, he concludes that it ultimately turned out to be a major letdown. The examiner then signals and bellows with all his strength for the test to commence. The first boy attempts to strike with a sword, but the blade splinters upon contact with the tough rock. Another contender uses his fist, but quickly withdraws with a severely injured hand. The same fate befalls another, who fractures his hand while trying to strike the rock forcefully. The scene leaves everyone stunned, while the frightened Langus trembles beside him. The examiner observes the boy's unsuccessful attempt on the ground and inquires if he wishes to retry. The examiner subsequently announces it as a forfeit and instructs his aides to take the boy away. With the unsuccessful candidate down, the man contacts the next person in line to take on the challenge. Zeke is puzzled by Langus' response, who is distressed by the exam's challenges. He examines the rocks intently and ponders what types of objects they might be. Langus describes it as a regeneration stone that mirrors impact numerous times. He states that circulating ether power allows the attack to merely graze the surface. Zeke realizes the test focuses on power management rather than combat ability. After a brief analysis, he starts to grasp the mechanics at play. He observes that numerous individuals, including the previous group of bullies, appear able to pass. A boy yells in frustration upon his disqualification, revealing the test's true difficulty. Another contestant collapses, bleeding, and is similarly disqualified by the examiner. The list of unsuccessful and former candidates grows, while the pool of applicants diminishes rapidly. Langus informs Zeke that there's still time to surrender as number 315 is called. He approaches the rocks and reassures his friend not to be concerned for him. Langus stands there silently, observing the scene with great concern. The examiner prepares to write and inquires about which weapon the boy wishes to select. But suddenly the man's eyes widen, utterly astonished by what he is witnessing. Zeke claims that it isn't needed as he releases a remarkable golden aura of energy. The examiner inquires whether he truly won't utilize a weapon, but Zeke replies that his fists suffice. In the throng, everyone believes his fists will break. Utilizing ether in that manner is futile. Langus feels panic, fearing his friend's arm could be severed. He immediately feels regret, thinking he should have intervened to prevent it earlier. The examiner remains composed, signaling to start with a serious expression on his face. Zeke examines the rock, believing the mineral likely developed over a millennium. He then declares it's irrelevant as a blazing aura envelopes his fists. Langus, in sheer desperation, attempts to prevent him from harm, shouting Zeke's name. With a self-assured grin, Zeke asserts that the rock can withstand his full strength. The name of his technique materializes in the air, and the impact's reflection glimmers in Langus's eye. He employs the dragon-slaying combat technique, life after death, to deliver a blow to the rock. The force of the punch shatters the regeneration stone into numerous fragments. The shockwave stirs up dust all around, leaving Langus bewildered. The examiner protects himself from the smoke yet stays rooted in place, unmoving. Zeke then smirks, fully pleased with the outcome of his attack. He understands that the method remains too sophisticated, and his present body cannot manage it. His hand is severely injured, and he admits his training may not have been sufficient. The other contenders watch the event in utter disbelief, stunned by what they have just seen. Retin, the bully, goes white with shock, unable to fathom that he smashed the rock. A girl with blonde hair in the crowd mentions that she found it quite fascinating. Langus is in shock, screaming in astonishment at his friend's power. Zeke grins in triumph, displaying his fists to the onlooking audience. The examiner believes it's unthinkable. Only a 4-star level person could achieve such a feat. He questions whether the boy has inherited his abilities and feels he has seen that move previously. Zeke steps forward to inquire about the result, making the examiner anxious. The man then yells out, declaring that candidate 315 has succeeded. An assistant offers him a potion, but Zeke is confused about its purpose. The man, wearing a somewhat insincere smile, tells the boy to move aside. Zeke ponders whether it's a prize and makes his way to the stands with the potion. Langus rushes to embrace him, exclaiming how amazing he was for shattering the rock. He inquires about the item, and Langus responds that it's a healing potion. Langus elaborates that it's of standard grade and opens a vial to demonstrate its function. He inspects the potion, determining its it's not poison and speculating if it might be an elixir. An elixir, as we know, is a concoction created from very rare ingredients. Its components are uncommon and can mend even ancient injuries, enhancing the drinker's ether. However, due to the lack of ingredients, he consumes the liquid to observe the outcome. At that moment, a green glow envelopes his arm, and his hand is fully healed instantly. He claims it's an elixir, but Langus insists the house's potions are superior. Zeke remarks on the astonishing speed of his wound healing. However, he notices no surge in ether, leading Langus to declare Zeke as the more remarkable individual. It is disclosed that the potion embodies a millennium of human knowledge and technological advancement. Langus claims he's powerful, to which Zeke responds that his aim is to become the strongest of everyone. At the same time, other candidates successfully complete the test by using their potions to heal. Zeke anticipated their success, while Langus grows anxious upon hearing the next number. It's his turn now, and the boy descends the stairs, stating he must go. Zeke yells for him to calm down, but Langus pleads for him to ease the pressure he's applying. He folds his arms, pondering what his friend is doing just lingering there. Langus brandishes his sword infused with blue ether, and the examiner gestures for him to start. With a fierce shout, he rushes ahead and slams the rock with full force. However, the initial effort is unsuccessful, and he vows to succeed on the next attempt. He gives it another go with greater resolve, yet the sword only grazes the stone. The impact knocks him back, leaving him on the ground, utterly drained and helpless. Sitting there, he is in disbelief over his failure, panting heavily. The bullies jeer and yell that he ought to surrender, claiming that the offspring of a failure is a failure as well. However, one of them recalls with a grin what Zeke had mentioned previously. He highlights that Zeke asserted the person on the ground was tougher than they were. The examiner states it's not absurd and grants him one final opportunity to succeed. The boy remains on the ground, despairingly stuttering that he can't manage it. Suddenly, Zeke shows up, questioning why he is just standing there. He wonders why he chose a sword over a spear, which would be more effective. Langus is confused by his words, and Zeke advises him against using a weapon without a strategy. Retten taunts him, claiming his struggles with the sword are irrelevant. The other boys jeer and yell that his dad never showed him how to wield a spear. Another chimes in, saying that changing weapons won't help at all. Zeke inquires with the examiner whether changing weapons during the test violates any regulations. He reassures Langus that it's fine, while the boy continues to gaze at him silently. Zeke questions whether he will surrender or battle to demonstrate that he is not a replica. Langus reflects on his youth, recalling how he was consistently belittled by those around him. With his gaze lowered, he replies no and gradually rises from the ground. He meets Zeke's eyes with resolve and declares that he will attempt to use the spear this time. He recalls his father, who was never permitted to enter the renowned dragon's nest. The vision of his father appears, depicting a man with an incredibly resolute expression even. Despite being ridiculed and labeled a pseudo-dragon, his father remained steadfast in his support. He then made a personal vow to demonstrate his true worth. With the spear firmly grasped in the arena, he determines to demonstrate his value today. He understands the outcome could be unchanged, yet he chooses to trust Zeke and make an attempt. Zeke subsequently addresses him by name, ready to provide a straightforward directive. He advises him to avoid overthinking and simply to thrust the spear directly at the rock. Zeke comforts him, stating he should focus on moving forward without any other concerns. He recalls Zeke's words about never knowing unless he tries. With renewed resolve, he clutches the spear tightly and resolves to put forth his utmost effort. Because Zeke had faith in him, he chooses to trust in himself for the very first time. He has never experienced the ether energy surge like this, not even while wielding the sword. With a fierce battle cry, he lunges ahead and strikes the rock directly with the spear. The bullies jeer and taunt, claiming that changing weapons ultimately made no difference. He senses that the spear has been integrated into his being from the start. With a quick and accurate motion, the spear's tip darts toward the rock. The impact lands perfectly, resulting in an explosion that breaks the stone into numerous fragments. The bullies cry out in shock, unable to comprehend what they have just seen. The examiner states that he not only scratched it but also completely pierced the rock. Zeke praises him for the accomplishment, but Langus is perplexed, unsure of what he achieved. With a stern expression, the man records on his clipboard that candidate 414 has succeeded. Gripping the spear, the boy silently questions if he truly passed. Zeke embraces him, affirming that he did it just as he envisioned. The boy exclaims that he passed and hugs Zeke, reveling in his happiness. However, the bullies shout in anger, claiming it was merely a stroke of luck. The examiner loudly announces to everyone that the test has concluded. He proceeds with his speech and declares that the entrance ceremony is about to start. Zeke inquires about the possibility of another exam, and Langus responds that they won't be taking taking any action. Abruptly, the camera zooms in on a person's feet as they walk through the field. Langus states that the family leaders will now share their congratulatory messages. A man with silver hair and a crimson aura distinguishes himself from the rest. Zeke inquires about the identity of the stern man, and Langus exclaims that he is the family leader. Langus urges him to hush, but Zeke remarks that the leader might benefit from a more cheerful demeanor. With a composed expression, Zeke agrees to stay quiet for the time being. He observes closely, assessing the strength of each of those men. Zeke observes several 6-star level individuals, noting that their strength is quite impressive. However, his reflections are soon disrupted by an even stronger presence. That was Balza Eldragon, the present head of the family and an 8-star warrior. He believes that a millennium ago, there were hardly a dozen individuals possessing this level of power. He expresses disdain, stating he has no affection for the man who is his father. The examiner calls for silence and declares that Lord Balza will deliver his address. With an intense and commanding presence, he instructs the newcomers to embody the flesh and blood. Zeke merely observes the situation, his expression reflecting complete boredom and lack of interest. The other contenders are feeling the strain, voicing that they can hardly breathe. He notices Langus grappling with the tension and calls out to check on him. Zeke observes that the other children are similarly overwhelmed by the man's pressure. He experiences intense hatred and claims he's unsure of what transpired, yet he can't tolerate him. Balza then departs, entrusting the ceremony to his subordinates. A man with blonde hair begins clapping in an exaggerated manner. With a loud, artificial laugh, he exclaims that the leader's remarks were elegant. Zeke inquires about the man's identity, and he responds that the Lord has lofty expectations for. The man yells for them to give their all, leaving Zeke increasingly bewildered. He claims it's merely a question of language, and that the shift in ambience brings a sense of relief. The other candidates remain silent, completely oblivious to what's happening around them. Everyone remains in the stands, anticipating the upcoming directions from the examiners. One of them yells that he will reveal the dormitory placements for the new students. Zeke inquires if they won't all be going to the same location, and Langus replies there are 4 dorms. The students are allocated to the north, south, east, and west dorms of the nest. Zeke bids farewell to his new companion Langus as number 315 is called. He reaches the east dormitory and appreciates the design of the grand, opulent structure. As he strolls through the corridors, he reflects on how much has transformed over a millennium of history. After wandering around, he eventually locates his room, believing his roommate has already come back. The boy places his hand on the doorknob, preparing to open the door and greet his roommate. He expresses regret for his tardiness and mentions that they will now share the room. Upon seeing the boy's face, he is taken aback and instantly recognizes him. Zeke walks into the room and is surprised to find a figure by the window. Smiling, he recognizes Langus and expresses that it seems they share a bond. The blue-haired boy nods, admitting he had been feeling somewhat isolated. Langus notes that training begins tomorrow and inquires if Zeke has any plans for today. He's astonished Zeke was unaware since the instructor informed everyone. However, Zeke acknowledges with a thumbs up that he wasn't really focused on what the man was saying. Regardless, Langus cautions that they should sleep soon as training begins early. Zeke gazes at the door, realizing he had intended to flee this dull location. He recalls the items he encountered during the exam, such as the potion and the regeneration stone. Consequently, he concludes that remaining with the Eldragon family for a bit longer isn't so terrible. The scene shifts, and a month later, we find ourselves at the magnificent castle of the Eldragon family. An instructor is yelling at the students about the dragon breathing technique. He persists with his lesson, emphasizing the necessity of mastering the skill for every circumstance. An older instructor wearing an eye patch observes the training from afar. He notes that a few have already perfected the technique, like the girl who is releasing her ether. The instructor shifts his focus to another student, a boy who appears distinct from the others. He watches Zeke hoisting heavy stones, questioning how he manages it without a mentor. The strange spectacle persists as the boy practices in an unprecedented manner that astonishes everyone. However, Zeke discovers that his initial method, the king dragon breathing, has been altered. It is indicated that these techniques facilitate the drawing and circulation of ether from the atmosphere within the body. Each noble house hones its unique style and closely protects the ultimate technique. He considers the dragon's breath ineffective since it only functions when the user remains stationary. His unique method was the sole technique that enabled ether usage during movement. He made it easier for others to utilize, and he feels pleased that it has endured for a millennium. With that in mind, Zeke persists in his intense training, disregarding others' gazes. The setting shifts, and everyone is now in the dining hall, finally relaxing after practice. Many students are extremely fatigued and can hardly hardly eat. Zeke is enthusiastically consuming everything placed before him. He observes that Lengus appears fatigued and cautions him that he won't gain strength without food. Lengus inquires about Zeke's abundant energy, to which Zeke responds that he is merely weak. He then shares a slice of his pie, encouraging Lengus to eat and train more diligently. Casting a sideways look, he notices some of the other students are quite skilled. At that moment, a blonde girl comes to their table, complimenting him and calling him amazing. Zeke, bewildered, inquires about her identity, causing Lengus to choke on his drink in surprise. In a hushed tone, Lengus urgently reveals that she is Laika, the family head's daughter. He claims she's a contender for the next leader, but Zeke discloses he's also the son of the head. The boy with blue hair is astonished and questions whether his statement is genuinely accurate. Then Laika herself unexpectedly inquires if he is the secret son of the leader. Zeke affirms that he would have no reason to lie about such matters. She inquires about his strength, curious how he broke the stone with just his hands. The girl pauses, watching Zeke's composed response. Then, a broad smile spreads across her face as she declares that he is genuinely remarkable. She gestures enthusiastically for him to join her, leaving Zeke bewildered. The girl expresses her desire to be his partner, emphasizing that he will require assistance later on. An image of them together illustrates the formidable alliance they could create. The girl suggests he utilize his abilities to assist her, but Zeke declines immediately. Confused by his refusal, she begins to question his motives and intentions. She gives him a stern gaze, accusing him of wanting the role of family leader too. Zeke contemplates her strength, observing that she can already emit ether beyond her physical form. He replies in a disinterested manner, expressing that he couldn't care less about the position, leaving the girl stunned by his response. Annoyed, Laika attempts to stab with a knife, but Zeke deflects the attack using just his fork. The knife embeds itself in the wooden table, demonstrating the strength of the strike. In that instant, Zeke emanates a formidable aura and grins, asserting that he will not serve anyone. He then proclaims, his eyes shining, that the explanation is straightforward. He is the strongest of them all. The girl is immobilized by the intense force of energy radiating from him. She finds it hard to believe a boy like him intimidates her. Lengus attempts to defuse the tension while Zeke resumes eating as if nothing occurred. However, Laika bounces back and declares that she will persist until she can defeat him in battle. Zeke simply gazes at her, bewildered, unable to comprehend anything she just said. The disturbance catches the notice of others who rush to report that the candidates are brawling. The students are astonished to learn that Laika will be fighting and speculate about who her rival might be. The setting shifts as everyone reaches the arena, witnessing the imminent start of the duel between the two. Zeke experiences some discomfort regarding the scenario, whereas Lengus is in a complete frenzy. He shouts at Zeke, emphasizing that he is now the head son and must exercise greater caution. Lengus further clarifies that Laika is exceptionally talented, having perfected swordsmanship by the age of 7. Zeke responds that he was unaware of any of that, increasing his friend's desperation even further. He is astonished by Zeke's tranquility, appearing utterly indifferent to the threat. The boy with blue hair is troubled, struggling to grasp his friend's behavior. Zeke, smiling, remarks that uncertainty adds to the thrill. Lengus then exclaims that he stands no chance against her and regrets taking on the challenge. Zeke clarifies that he never avoids a confrontation and that the girl appears fully prepared for a battle. Laika brandishes her sword and, exuding a strong aura, inquires if he is prepared. She shouts that she's spent enough time and questions if he's prepared to battle. Zeke grins and replies that he's more than prepared, which frightens Lengus. Lengus rushes out of the arena, urgently warning his friend to stay safe. She cautions him that he should be the one concerned, and Zeke inquires why she is so keen to battle. The girl asserts that she will become the next leader, and to achieve that, she must conquer him and compel him to serve her. He appears uninterested, questioning what relevance any of this has to him. She thinks it's odd that he is unaware of the family, while Zeke claims he knows the first chief. However, Laika interrupts him and clarifies that 5 heirs are vying for the position. It's revealed that everyone but him has lineage from one of the 4 major houses. Zeke stays indifferent, deeming it all overly complex and admitting he comprehends nothing. Regardless, she puts away her sword and cautions that, as a contender, she must ensure her position. To demonstrate her resolve, she slams her foot onto the ground, shattering the stone arena. The boy merely observes as she proclaims her intention to conquer him at that moment. With a bound, the girl charges at him, prepared for the decisive blow. However, Zeke swiftly evades, and the sword's impact fractures the arena ground. The girl strikes once more, shouting that he won't escape this time. The observing students are amazed, commenting that she handles the sword effortlessly. Yet Zeke continues to evade her attacks, appearing almost entertained by it all. Others remark that her strikes are becoming increasingly increasingly swift, highlighting the strength of her lineage. Frustration builds within her as she questions why she can't connect a single blow. Amidst a barrage of strikes, Zeke skillfully evades each one, further aggravating the girl. Langus observes from afar, astonished, struggling to comprehend what he is witnessing. A boy with brown hair remarks that he has never witnessed a fighting style like that. Enraged, Laika shouts at him to cease talking and engage in a serious fight finally. Zeke tightens his fist, surrounded by a blue aura, declaring that's precisely what he will. He seizes her arm tightly, halting her sword strike in mid-swing. A single blow to her abdomen propels the girl backward from the force of the hit. Blood splatters from her mouth due to the impact, revealing the strength of the boy's strike. Laika stumbles backward, too exhausted to keep fighting after receiving the blow. The students are stunned, questioning the identity of the person who bested Laika. Leaning on her sword, she inquires why she can't strike him, despite being faster than anyone. However, Zeke emphasizes that ultimately, she remains merely a one-star. She becomes furious, claiming he is as well and that he shouldn't be able to match her pace. He goes on to describe how he observes her breath, muscle movements, and her eyes. He concludes that everything else is merely experience, rendering the girl speechless. She exclaims it's ridiculous and charges at him once more with her sword. The blow halts just before his face, as though it encountered an obstacle. He spins to evade her, causing her to stumble, remarking that he had already cautioned her. He tightly holds her arm, eliminating any possibility of a counterattack. The boy delivers another blow, sending her heart crashing against the arena wall. He holds his fist out, observing the aftermath of his brutal strike. The students gasp, calling out Laika's name, unable to accept her defeat. Lang revels in the win, but Zeke interjects, insisting the battle isn't finished. Amidst the dust, we catch sight of the girl struggling to steady herself, firmly planting her feet on the ground. Zeke admires her, commending her ability to endure the impact with her power. Despite her injury and clutching her stomach, Laika manages to rise, refusing to surrender. Lang is concerned for her, but Zeke advises him to step back to avoid getting injured. He senses the energy around her feet, believing she has achieved the 2-star level. In an instant, the girl's form is surrounded by a brilliant lightning aura. The observing students are astonished, identifying the distinct aura of a 2-star. This level enables an individual to extend their power externally, forming a combat aura. She expresses her gratitude to Zeke, attributing her evolution to his support and influence. With that, she lunges ahead, shouting that he has no chance, astonishing Zeke with her swiftness. The assault creates a path of yellow light, and he barely evades the blow. However, he senses a gash on his face and is perplexed, convinced he had evaded it. The girl emerges from behind him, inquiring about the sensation of the attack while flaunting her newfound power. She proclaims this as her genuine strength, revealing her aura to the adversary. Harnessing her awakened aura, she readies herself to unleash her most powerful technique. Laika cautions him that he will now confront the genuine skills of the Thunder Sword. Zeke feels no fear. Instead, he's thrilled to experience a style unlike any he's encountered. With a broad smile, he believes this fight is the most amazing event possible. The girl then unveils her technique, a bolt of lightning slicing through the air with incredible swiftness. Zeke finds himself enveloped by the electricity, astonished and bewildered by the nature of that power. Beaming with enthusiasm, he inquires about her ability to harness real lightning, but she interrupts him, gearing up for another formidable strike. With a single hit, she fractures the arena floor and ensnares him in a web of lightning. He concedes that, in his present condition, managing such overwhelming force will be quite challenging. The boy ponders how a single star variation can make such a significant impact in battle. Langus observes everything in fear from afar, desperately shouting his friend's name. Zeke observes that her actions are straightforward, yet her technique has surged in strength. Now a 2-star, she has become quicker and more perilous than she was previously. He thinks it's odd since harnessing lightning was unfeasible a millennium ago, yet he chooses to watch. The boy evades once more, feeling a strong curiosity about what this power entails. Laika observes his smile and remarks that he must possess considerable confidence to be smiling at this moment. Furiously, she shouts that she will erase that smug grin from his face once and for all. Zeke halts his retreat, firmly planting his feet on the ground, prepared for a counterstrike. She subsequently employs her most powerful move, a thunder strike that impacts him directly. Zeke expresses admiration, stating she resembles a vibrant bolt of lightning. The girl's strike triggers a massive explosion, devastating the battlefield further. Langus and the fellow student shout Zeke's name, terrified by the sight they've just seen. Yet amidst the smoke, he emerges, remaining upright despite enduring all that harm. Laika persists and unleashes another rapid assault, leaving him no chance to recover. The boy slams his foot firmly into the ground, bracing himself and standing his ground in the arena. Langus steps into the arena arena and shouts for her to halt, but she replies that he remains upright. She states that halting at this point would be disrespectful as he hasn't given up. The girl then proposes to halt the assault right then if he capitulates. Zeke offers a slight smirk, indicating he won't surrender the battle without a struggle. She recognizes his pride and resolves to exert all her energy to conclude the battle. The girl channels all her strength into her sword, readying for the decisive strike of the fight. She unleashes her initial secret technique, Celestial Thunder, at full power. A golden energy beam shoots forth, hurtling towards Zeke. The strike impacts him directly, enveloping his body in radiant golden lightning. Desperate, Langus shouts his name, struggling to comprehend the events unfolding in the arena. Following the blast, the boy collapses to the earth, utterly defeated and encircled by debris. Laika's sword is embedded in the earth, signifying the conclusion of her fierce assault. Panting, she expresses her apologies and announces that the game has concluded. Suddenly, a golden light emerges behind her, catching her off guard. She spins around, startled, and inquires why he can harness electricity just like she can. Zeke stands up and inquires if the name of the power he replicated is electricity. He looks at her and, smiling, admits he's unsure why he possesses this ability. Arms folded, he shouts that he also has no clue how he accomplished it. The girl is utterly bewildered, failing to comprehend anything he just said. He clarifies that he intentionally endured the blows to analyze her abilities, and now he can utilize them. Throughout the assaults, he continuously utilized his Dragon King's breathing. As a result, her lightning energy interacted with his breathing, forming a unique connection. Lightning started to build within him, and he can now harness that energy. He confesses he doesn't grasp all the specifics, yet considers it an invaluable lesson. Laika notes that he must possess a unique body since the technique is part of her lineage. He expresses gratitude for the lesson, realizing that his power was mistaken for lightning, and most importantly, he can now harness lightning energy in his hand. Thank you. To her, he is transformed into a 2-star, radiating his formidable aura. With a piercing look, he informs the girl that their battle is far from finished. She lunges at him with her sword once more, eager to resume the duel. Zeke grins, proclaiming that the conflict is just beginning. He subsequently unleashes an energy beam that strikes the arena wall powerfully. Yet he falters slightly, confessing he hasn't adapted to the power yet. It's noted that the energy combined with lightning enhances the body, invigorating all aspects. He believes that he will quickly master this strange and new ability he's acquired. The linguist observes in disbelief, astonished by the intensity of the clash between the two successors. With his enhanced speed, Laika's lightning strikes can no longer connect. Infuriated, she shouts and questions whether he's ridiculing her with his demeanor. Zeke responds with a grin, stating he isn't intimidated and views her as a genuine threat. He forcefully crushes her sword, harnessing the power of lightning to counter the assault. The girl flinches from the blow as Zeke steps back to create space. He takes a moment to stretch and resolves to conclude the battle by developing a new technique. Laika is perplexed and self-corrects, stating it will be a unique type of assault. She drifts into contemplation, questioning whether he had secretly mastered martial arts. However, Zeke interrupts her thoughts, rushing toward her with newfound speed. With a concentrated and resolute expression, he readies himself for the decisive strike of the battle. With that, he unleashes his new art, Thunderstorm, with full force. The impact strikes the girl directly, rendering her paralyzed and enveloped in electricity. Linguist subsequently announces the conclusion of the match, astonished by the battle's result. Zeke looms over the vanquished Laika, commending her and remarking on the captivating nature of the fight. Reclining on the ground, the girl is in disbelief over losing the fight. Fuming, she believes she must succeed, as becoming the next family head is essential for her. With tears streaming down her face, she's heartbroken over her humiliating loss. She recalls that she must outshine her siblings to achieve the title of family leader. Zeke commends her, stating that the battle was impressive and she possesses great strength. He tightens his fist, believing that discovering new knowledge is a pleasure and that it was all worthwhile. Smiling, he reaches out his hand to her, inviting her to engage in battle once more in the future. The girl is taken aback and blushes at the invitation, astonished by his demeanor. He assists Laika in getting up, suggesting they train together again soon. Zeke smiles, expressing his eagerness for their upcoming match. She shakes his hand, acknowledging her defeat and admitting he's unbeatable. A short time later, the focus changes to a shadowy chasm, teeming with bizarre creatures. Isolated, Balza confronts the horde of creatures, displaying no sign of fear. He rushes toward the monsters, striking at them simultaneously. His eye shines with a crimson light, showcasing the tremendous power he holds. He unleashes his dragon pressure, a crimson aura that frightens those around. With that, he employs his dragon combat techniques and begins to fight earnestly. His initial form unleashes numerous strikes, targeting all the monsters at once. The beasts are powerless against the energy blows and are cleaved in two by the assaults. In the assault, he stands solitary, demonstrating the ease of his triumph. The setting shifts, revealing Balza guiding a contingent of soldiers into the rift. The team progresses further into the perilous area. Suddenly, a soldier arrives, delivering a crucial update to Lord Balza. The soldier tells him that Lady Laika has achieved the 2-star rank. The family leader stays motionless, appearing indifferent to the news. With his crimson aura, he scornfully inquires what makes that information so significant. The man states that with her skills, she has the potential to achieve 5-star status in the future. However, Balza claims that talent is irrelevant and instructs the soldier to go. The soldier cuts him off, disclosing that Laika was completely vanquished in battle. Taken aback by this information, he spins around and inquires if she faced one of the veterans. However, the man discloses that it was Zeke, his son of identical age, who triumphed over her. He analyzes the details and recalls that Zeke is the woman's illegitimate child. A brief flashback reveals the boy's mother, skilled in combat. Balza questions who instructed him in fighting, and the soldier replies that he learned to fight independently. Zeke attained the 2-star level independently, without guidance or assistance. Armed with this knowledge, Balza concludes they can now initiate the first major test. The soldier expresses worry, noting that many of the students have yet to graduate. However, he claims it is irrelevant since those who fail the test have no future in that place. With a grim expression, he proclaims they do not deserve to be included in the Eldragon family. Balza then instructs the soldier to summon Freya back without delay. The man is taken aback, but Balza clarifies that defeating Laika is intriguing. He instructs Freya to perform the test and monitor all aspects closely. The chief smiles while thinking of Zeke, remarking that this will all be quite entertaining. The following day, the focus changes, revealing the students diligently practicing in the castle courtyard. Langus is fully committed, diligently honing his skills in dragon combat arts. In contrast, Zeke is engaged in his own regimen, effortlessly lifting massive stones. This method is described as a means to enhance physical strength, developed by the 15th leader. Langus then inquires why Zeke isn't practicing the combat arts. Zeke responds that he has already perfected the technique, which astounds Langus. He also points out that his friend's ether flow is incorrect and requires some fine-tuning. With that, he lets go of the rock and summons Langus, offering his assistance. Zeke makes him levitate with a touch and requests that he turn around. He then places a hand on his friend's back, infusing him with a golden energy. He clarifies that this is the proper way to channel the energy, which leaves Langus appreciative. While Langus is impressed, Zeke feels irritated that his abilities were questioned. He expresses regret, clarifying that his only teacher has been his father. This is why he assumed the dragon arts would be uninteresting for someone as powerful as Zeke. However, Zeke asserts otherwise, noting that his technique is intricate and challenging. It is clarified that his combat style encompasses multiple forms, possessing immense strength. Furthermore, there exists the ultimate technique, the one that defeated the divine dragon itself. With a grin, he mentions that having mastered the skill, he returned to his usual physical training. Langus is taken aback by his rapid progress and calls Zeke over for a chat. Puffed up with pride, he inquires if Zeke could train him as he did previously. The black-haired boy appears slightly taken aback by the proposal but seems to contemplate it. With resolve, Langus expresses his desire to become stronger, and Zeke agrees to his request. Langus is astonished by the response, prompting Zeke to ask about his reaction. Zeke reassures him that he wouldn't deceive him and believes Langus is a worthy candidate for training. At that moment, a shy Laika shows up and requests to be taught as well, adding intrigue to the situation. Langus is surprised by Laika's interest in training, and she questions whether she's not permitted to join. She shares that she never imagined someone her age could defeat her, as she is the future leader. The girl admits her pride was utterly shattered, leaving the two boys in shock. With resolve, she declares her desire to become strong enough to outshine her siblings and him. Zeke ponders her request, carefully considering the situation before responding. She believes he will refuse, as he is a candidate and her competitor. Langus notes that despite being a jerk, he remains the son of the family leader. Zeke expresses that he doesn't care, yet he's concerned about her injury from the altercation. However, Laika discloses that she utilized a healing potion and is fully recovered now. Zeke and Langus murmur about the potion, leaving Laika puzzled by their response. They determine that nothing is beyond her capabilities and that they exist in an extraordinary time. The girl then inquires once more if he will genuinely be her training mentor. With a broad grin, he responds that he could never turn down such a promising young talent. Both are bewildered, as he is also young and their peer. He then questions her certainty, reminding her that he was the one who triumphed over her in the arena. However, she asserts that she prioritizes determination over appearances and will will do anything necessary to succeed. Z questions her intense obsession with becoming the family head. She discloses that if she fails to become the leader, her only remaining option is a political marriage. Zeke is furious and astonished, struggling to comprehend what he just heard from. Laika states that their lineage is precious, allowing the family to utilize it as they choose. Langus is appalled by the avarice and repulsive politics in the family. Furious, Zeke exclaims that he will take it upon himself to dismantle this practice of dehumanizing individuals. Just then, an instructor calls for everyone's focus on the situation. Laika feels perplexed, questioning the cause of his unexpected outcry. At that moment, a woman with red hair unexpectedly shows up behind the three friends. The teacher informs the class about a new instructor's arrival and urges everyone to show appreciation. The woman then steps forward, seizing Laika's hair, inquiring if that is her name. The girl, startled, stands frozen in fear, unable to respond to the sudden touch. She tumbles backward as the two boys embrace, frightened by the spectacle. The woman admires her own quick reflexes and keen energy, forming a flawless gesture with her hand. Zeke is astonished that he failed to detect her presence and questions her identity. The other instructors commend her swiftness, disclosing that her name is Freya. Smiling, she presents herself as Freya, a part of the Black Dragon Corps. She then spins around and verifies if he's Zeke, the boy she's heard of. Freya inquires about his lack of surprise, to which he responds that there's no cause for it. With a serious expression, she notes that he appears to possess a fascinating talent. He returns her smile, understanding she's not just anyone and he needs to tread carefully. Freya realizes the reason behind the family head's concern for this boy. However, Zeke considers her martial arts significantly more captivating than her stealth abilities. He's intrigued since he has never witnessed a power flow like hers and believes this will be enjoyable. The woman forcefully slams her foot onto the ground, capturing the attention of every student in the courtyard. With a smile, she declares that she will be their new instructor. The instructor introduces herself as a formidable star and urges everyone to focus intently. The students are taken aback, questioning why someone so powerful would be among them. Some feel exhilarated, eager to learn from such a strong mentor. Grinning, she mentions that she will only teach those who succeed in the test she has devised. The students are filled with dread at the thought of an unexpected exam, unsure of what lies ahead. She unveils a crystal orb and announces that the test involves spending a month on Poison Dragon Mountain. While others panic at the mention, Zeke simply remarks that it's been ages since he heard that name. The focus shifts to the mountain, an area inhabited by perilous and venomous creatures. The toxin from just one leaf there can instantly kill an average individual. Zeke recalls his training there from a previous life, but believes it's excessive for these kids. Freya cautions that breaking the crystal orb results in immediate disqualification for the student. Frightened, the students inquire about the consequences of failure, to which she replies that they will face expulsion. She emphasizes the necessity of employing the dragon's breath technique for their safety, but Laika interjects, highlighting the presence of perilous monsters in the mountain. With a fierce demeanor, Freya icily states that they must eliminate the monsters for sustenance. The students are taken aback, questioning if their combat skills will suffice, but Freya comforts them, noting they have 5 days to get ready. In that period, they will need to select and master one of the family's fundamental martial arts. With a wicked grin, she cautions that she won't take responsibility if they fail to grasp the technique. A student inquires if she'll assist them, and she finds his innocence charming. She then elaborates that this is the L-Dragon family, where the weak perish and the strong endure. The three friends appear solemn, while the other students begin to weep in dread of the examination. Zeke ponders whether the family he once knew has transformed significantly, recalling his son, Gilliam. Freya then claps her hands, instructing the students to select the manuals for the weapons they will utilize. The students are perplexed, uncertain about which technique book to select for practice. Zeke assists Langus, advising him to choose the spear, as he had utilized it during the exam. Laika hesitates, but Zeke cuts in before she can opt for the sword. With a stern expression, he gestures for her to select a different weapon. She inquires about the axe, to which he clarifies that it will enhance her technique. Grinning, he persuades the girl, and ultimately, she agrees to his suggestion. Freya then cautions that they have 5 days to prepare, as if their survival hinges on it. With a chilling smile, she emphasizes that failure to train will result in their demise. The students go pale with dread, realizing the gravity of the forthcoming exams. She further discloses that the upperclassmen will attempt to take their orbs during the examination. The three friends are stunned, struggling to comprehend the instructor's words. It's clarified that the decade-long veterans will face the challenge of stealing their orbs. She waves gently, wishing them luck and declaring they will be pursued with all their might. Langus is in a frenzy, exclaiming that they must battle both monsters and seniors. Laika expresses her concern, noting noting that all the seniors are at least 2-star or better. Zeke concurs and proposes they team up in pairs or groups of 3 for the battle. The duo appreciates the suggestion but then inquires about Zeke's plans for the test. Zeke responds that he intends to go solo for the sake of enjoyment, which surprises them. Enthusiastically, he suggests they grab a meal, leading his friends to think he can be a little odd at times. 5 days later, the sun ascends above the mountain, signaling the beginning of the test. In the woods, the students appear anxious, and Langus questions whether everything will turn out fine. At the same time, the older students are waiting, appearing uninterested in the scenario. Freya turns to the mountain and, smiling, declares that the challenge has commenced. Langus enthusiastically remarks that the exam is finally here, but Laika appears quite anxious. He questions whether partnering with her is wise, given her noble background. The boy feels hopeless, recalling that he is merely a commoner without a family emblem. Suddenly, a voice beckons him, and he notices Celine and Raymond coming toward the group. Celine joyfully introduces herself, expressing her disbelief at fighting alongside Laika. In contrast, Raymond, the other team member, appears significantly more composed and self-assured than the rest. Laika clarifies that their social status, whether noble or common, is irrelevant. She selected them based on their abilities. Upon hearing this, Langus clutches his spear firmly, indicating he understands. He shouts at the top of his lungs that he will strive not to hinder the team. Smiling, Laika expresses her reliance on everyone's support and contribution. She then looks at Zeke and inquires if it's accurate that he plans to take the exam by himself. The protagonist happily agrees, causing Laika to feel anxious, stating she isn't like him. Zeke feels puzzled, questioning why she's anxious when the class is brimming with talent. The others believe that's the reason for their anxiety, considering Zeke as the exception. Laika then asks if he views their group as strong, to which Zeke concurs. Zeke evaluates the team, believing that Laika possesses a keen ability to select strong individuals. He informs Langus that the team possesses both offensive and defensive skills, making the test an easy task for them. At that moment, Instructor Freya arrives and notices that all the groups have already been formed to begin. She faces the students, declaring that the exam is about to start and refers to the orbs. The teacher presents a crystal orb, stating they must endure a month on the mountain. She mentions that to succeed, they only need to possess an orb at the end, noting that all the orbs are the same. The students quickly understand the trick. If they lose theirs, they can simply take another's. Zeke's expression shifts to somber, realizing that this will be a genuine fight. To complicate things further, Freya discloses that upperclassmen will also venture into the mountain to take the orbs. 2 upperclassmen mockingly claim it will be simple due to the rookie's weakness. The news has left everyone stunned, understanding that the exam will be significantly more challenging than anticipated. With a yell, Freya concludes the explanation and declares the exam has started. Immediately, all the students rush frantically into the forest. Laika shouts for Zeke to return safely, and he nonchalantly responds, urging her to look after herself as well. She subsequently contacts her team, and they all proceed together into the mountain, prepared for the challenge. Zeke bids farewell to the instructor, who is surprised by the boy's composed attitude. He inquires if she is leaving as well, catching Instructor Freya off guard. She then asks if he feels improved now that his anxiety has eased. However, our main character claims he felt no nerves, leading Freya to view him as odd. The scene shifts to that evening, where an instructor inquires if the students will manage. He believes this exam is excessively tough for newcomers who have just begun their training. The man observes that only a few possess stars and they lack genuine combat experience. However, a high-ranking officer comes in, chuckling, assuring everyone that everything is okay and there's no need for concern. Freya clarifies that the mountain's monsters are toxic, yet they tend to be quite feeble. With that, she assures they'll handle it, and the instructor feels more relaxed now. However, she reveals a wicked grin, remarking that they will unleash that thing later on. The instructor is completely clueless, but Freya brushes it off, claiming it was insignificant. At that moment, a threatening group of upperclassmen is unleashed to start the hunt. Freya observes it all with a grin, eager to find out how many newcomers will endure. In the woods, a senior believes he has ambushed someone, but it's Zeke, who had been anticipating him. A big upperclassman spots Zeke and sneers, mocking him for still hanging around. Concealed close by, another upperclassman readies her crossbow with a sinister grin, poised to strike the boy. With that, she releases a targeted arrow directly at our protagonist, who appears completely unfazed. To everyone's astonishment, Zeke effortlessly snatches the arrow from the air with one hand. He suddenly breaks into a wild grin and shouts that he's been anticipating their arrival all along. The upperclassmen are stunned, and the girl feels fear as she understands he halted her assault. Zeke immediately jumps from the branch and sprints toward the gathering of hunters. He shouts once more, beckoning the upperclassmen to join him with a wildly crazy expression. Elsewhere in the woods, woods, Celine is engaged in battle when a massive toxic frog surprises her. Without hesitation, she lunges ahead with her sword, striking the creature with a precise and clean blow. The frog collapses in defeat, while Celine grimaces in disgust at the slime that has splattered onto her. Out of nowhere, Raymond rushes in, yelling, and shoves her aside, shielding her with his armor. He calls out her name, anxious about the threat that has suddenly emerged behind her. With all his strength, Raymond crushes another massive frog with the front of his shield. At that moment, Lengus seizes the opportunity and dispatches the creature with a thrust of his spear. The team assembles, and Laika commends their collaboration, which leaves Lengus in awe. However, they soon notice that Laika has single-handedly vanquished a heap of frogs. She boasts of her 2-star status and notes how everyone has improved significantly in just a week. Raymond and Celine express gratitude to Laika, having now achieved 1 star as well. Noticing that, Lengus feels somewhat disheartened since he has yet to achieve a level up. However, his friends encourage him, reminding him that he has grown stronger as well and should take his time. Laika rushes over, exclaiming that beating a frog solo without a star is truly amazing. She reminds him that he practiced with Zeke, so his spear skills are impressive, and he will improve shortly. Laika cautions that darkness is approaching, signaling it's time for everyone to return to camp. As the sun sets, darkness envelopes the forest, introducing its inherent threats. At the base, the team notices an unusual sound emanating from the nearby trees. The entire group becomes tense, and Lengus shouts to Laika, anticipating the worst outcome. With an intense glare, she peers into the bushes and inquires who dared to invade their base. A footprint on a twig reveals the intruder's location to us. Everyone is taken aback by the confirmation, bracing for an unavoidable battle. A cheerful elderly person emerges, noting that the group has finally succeeded in finding. Laika challenges him, inquiring if he arrived from the senior class to take their orb. He grins and affirms, stating that's the objective of the test, and he was fortunate to discover them. She shouts at him to leave, cautioning that he can't defeat them all on his own. The senior simply chuckles and inquires who claimed he arrived by himself. At that very moment, Laika and her group feel a tremendous threat approaching from their rear. 3 additional seniors emerge, and the leader taunts them, claiming Laika is unable to safeguard all. He starts to unsheath his sword, ready to take the group's orb. The senior rushes ahead with all his strength, shouting for Laika's team to surrender. With her sword radiating light, Laika leaps and strikes the senior's leader with a jolt of electricity. She emits a piercing scream, capturing the focus of all her companions amid the turmoil surrounding them. At the same time, Celine faces off against another senior, trading sword strikes resolutely. Raymond employs his shield to protect himself from an assault by another adversary charging at him with great intensity. Lengus is struggling to withstand the attack from a formidable senior. He grows increasingly desperate, contemplating how he might change the outcome of this scenario. The scene shifts to a flashback, featuring Lengus inquiring Zeke about defeating a stronger opponent. He felt anxious since he lacked a star and was unsure how to truly engage in combat. To his astonishment, Zeke shouts that the solution is straightforward, and he merely needs to surrender. The protagonist clarifies that defeating a 3 or 4-star adversary would be utterly impossible for him. Lengus is deep in thought, attempting to grasp what his friend meant. However, Zeke points out that during the exam, the foes would be at most 2-star, indicating a possible strategy. Intrigued, Lengus inquires about this strategy. Zeke explains that it's straightforward, he just needs to take advantage of one enemy weakness. When Lengus questions how to identify that weakness, Zeke advises him to persevere. With a grin, he encourages him to endure and continue enduring until the enemy reveals an opportunity. The boy is taken aback, but Zeke clarifies that a weaker individual cannot create opportunities against a stronger opponent. At this moment, Lengus grips his trousers, inquiring if he believes he can endure it all. The main character cautions that he must persevere, even at the cost of his life, or victory remains a mere illusion. The boy becomes quiet, taking in the difficult yet honest guidance he received. However, Zeke reassures him, stating that facing a 2-star adversary will not be an issue. Lengus remains uncertain, and the protagonist understands that his friend lacks self-confidence. He then expresses that having faith in oneself is the crucial first step toward gaining strength. With that, Zeke lifts a finger and states he has one final piece of advice. He shouts at his friend not to overanalyze, as that will only hinder him in the midst of a battle. The main character states that he merely needs to wait for the gap and thrust his spear directly through it. Returning to the battle, Lengus recalls the guidance and executes a direct thrust with his spear. He remembers Zeke stating that this is the genuine way to overcome a more formidable foe. The senior grows frustrated with the defense, exclaiming that Lengus is an exceptionally tenacious adversary. Lengus tells himself he's at a disadvantage, so he must stay strong until an opportunity opportunity arises. With a resolute expression, he tightly holds his spear, prepared to stand firm. However, the senior shoves him away, growing frustrated with the boy's stubborn defense. The foe leaps down to strike from above, shouting for Lengus to finally fall. In that instant, Lengus spots the ideal chance, and his eyes gleam with excitement. He channels his energy into the spear's tip, emitting a brilliant blue light. He performs a quick motion, delivering a direct and accurate thrust at the senior. The spear strikes directly at the center of the enemy's body, who was unprepared for the counterattack. The veteran is stunned, unable to believe a rookie could have struck him in that manner. Thus, Lengus emerges triumphant as his adversary collapses, defeated onto the ground. At that moment, a powerful star illuminates his chest, signifying that he has advanced to the next level. At the same time, Laika faces challenges, while her adversary believes the battle is won. The senior feels hopeless as, despite being 2 stars, the disparity in power is significant. With a thunderous strike, Laika breaks through the guy's defense and overcomes him. It's noted that she utilized Zeke's advice, blending axe techniques with her swordplay. With her hair sparking with electricity, Laika cautions that the senior's fortune has just expired. The senior, filled with dread, screams at the top of his lungs, declaring this is his demise. She releases a powerful electrical surge, causing the man to scream in agony from the strike. Following her victory over the enemy, she hurries back to reunite with her team. She arrives and inquires if everyone is fine, noticing the other seniors lying on the ground. Langus gazes at her, feeling slightly shy yet pleased about his victory in the battle. With that, the entire team rejoices in their win, and Langus exclaims that he truly did. Celine praises Langus for achieving his first star, filling him with joy. Laika grins and notes that at last, everyone in the group possesses a star of power. She grows pensive, contemplating how Zeke is faring alone. The scene shifts to a dark section of the forest, where a massive presence stirs. The earlier senior is seen fleeing in terror, yelling for something to keep its distance from her. She's sweating profusely, questioning what on earth that creature pursuing her group could be. It is disclosed that Zeke was the one who overcame everyone, earning the label of a monster from them. The veterans flee in terror, shouting for Zeke to keep his distance and pleading for assistance. Lying on the ground, one of them contemplates the frightening nature of our protagonist. Zeke shows up grinning wildly, causing the man to scream in fear, calling him a monster. The protagonist taunts them, questioning if their courage has vanished. They fail to grasp how a newcomer is pursuing them when it ought to be the opposite. Amid the turmoil, one veteran stumbles badly and lands face first on the ground. The man understands he's caught in a trap, and Zeke cautions him that he's weary of this game. With crimson eyes, he urges the veteran to rise and confront him. The protagonist gazes at the seasoned warrior, golden eyes brimming with bloodlust. The veteran succumbs to the pressure and collapses in fear of the boy. Observing this, Zeke feels it's sad how they've lost the bravery they initially possessed. However, he then glances at the bushes and beckons anyone hiding to step forward for a better view. He states that since they're merely spectators, he can carry on the game without restraint. Concealed, a person is shocked, understanding the boy has fully found them. An instructor was taken aback, questioning what on earth this child truly is. The instructor is shocked that Zeke not only defeated the veterans but also recognized him. Disturbed by this development, he resolves to inform his superiors without delay. The scene shifts to Freya, who welcomes the instructor and inquires about what transpired. The instructors mention that a week has passed and 30% of the newcomers have already quit. She believes no one else will resign, so she inquires about the veteran's status. The men appear anxious, and one of them begins to sweat profusely. An instructor suddenly exclaims that, honestly, the veterans are the ones fleeing in terror. Freya is utterly baffled, questioning why the veterans would be afraid of anyone. She remembers that there are no powerful monsters, but then the instructor discloses it's due to Zeke. He describes how Zeke is now targeting the veterans, making them all his prey. The man grows frantic, yelling that Zeke is pursuing everyone and that such an event has never occurred before. A high-ranking officer concurs, stating that despite being the chief's son, the boy is unusual. It is stated that he has exceeded prodigious levels and has now become a genuine monster. Freya recalls Zeke departing on his own, understanding he was the hunter all along. With a chilling grin, she recognizes that Zeke is, undeniably, a monster. The instructors are suddenly alarmed, confused about the situation at the camp. At that moment, a large cage arrives, and Freya reveals she anticipated its arrival. An instructor shouts at her, warning that she cannot unleash that 3-star monster here. She simply laughs and clarifies that they modified it, ensuring the creature will only go after those with 2 stars. Consequently, Zeke and Laika will be the targets, leaving the others unharmed. Freya discloses that this was a direct command from the chief, Balza Eldragon. She wonders if Zeke's immense strength can effectively confront this looming danger. With a self-assured smile, the instructor commands them to set set the creature free at dawn. The scene transitions to the following morning as the sun ascends over Dragon Mountain. Laika's team is trekking when Lang abruptly senses the ground tremble. Raymond senses something ominous, while Laika speculates whether it's the veterans once more. However, Lang suggests it might be a colossal creature akin to a furious boar. Suddenly, they are startled by a thunderous sound and turn around in terror to discover its source. Everyone panics upon seeing a massive tree tumbling directly in their direction. Laika shouts urgently, urging everyone to flee as quickly as possible. The team drops to the ground, narrowly avoiding the descending tree. Once the danger has passed, Laika glances up, and Celine gestures toward the new peril that has emerged. Lang and Raymond are equally frightened, struggling to comprehend what lies before them. It became clear that it was a massive stone golem, its red eyes radiating sheer malevolence. In the distance, Zeke gazes at the sky, sensing it was finally time for a change. He lounges atop a heap of vanquished creatures and warriors, exhaling a weary sigh. He believes he's reached his limit, feeling disheartened with no opponents remaining. Then, a surge of immense energy envelopes the entire Dragon Mountain. He perceives an unusual presence, realizing that a creature of this caliber hasn't shown up in years. He recalls the initial leader and believes a 3-star adversary is excessive for the children. Zeke believes that the instructors should have addressed this issue prior to the exam commencing. However, he soon understands they did it intentionally and contemplates their wild scheme. Wearing a wild grin, he believes this is ideal, as he will finally experience genuine excitement. Instead of standing still, he sprints away, shouting that he's pursuing that powerful creature. Selena shouts and lunges forward with her sword, poised to attack the stone golem. Her blow connects directly, yet it fails to make a dent in the creature's rocky exterior. The girl is astonished it was ineffective, while Raymond prepares to attempt it too. He then jumps with all his force, crashing his shield against the creature's head, exerting every ounce of his power. But that still fell short, and he understands the adversary is too powerful for the team. Laika goes all in, employing her lightning strike and releasing an incredible surge of energy upon the golem. The electric blast connects perfectly, however, it merely succeeds in forming a minor fracture in its arm. She then understands that her aura can only shatter the creature's exterior shell. Observing the circumstances, Lengus urgently inquires with Laika about their next steps. She chooses to offer herself, instructing them to divert the golem's attention while the rest of the group flees. The girl clarifies they would merely hinder their efforts, having expended much aura for that purpose. The golem gazes at the group with its crimson eyes, steaming and poised to strike. Laika cautions that, in their present condition, they couldn't even touch the opponent. However, Raymond declines, stating they can offer the assistance she requires to combat. She is taken aback by her friend's stance, unwilling to abandon her. Lengus and Celine also call out that if they unite in battle, they could stand a chance. The entire team assembles before the golem, demonstrating their readiness to battle as one. Noticing the team's resolve, Laika smiles and consents to their proposed plan. Raymond shouts for everyone to give cover as Laika gets ready for the assault. With her sword infused with lightning, she declares her intent to unleash her full strength against the creature. Focusing her energy, her sword radiates with remarkable electrical energy. She confronts the stone golem, preparing for the impending assault. However, the creature strikes first, and Raymond leaps in front, using his shield to deflect the blow. He senses the impact of the strike, but stands firm to defend his companions. Consequently, Lengus and Celine take advantage of the moment to strike the golem's legs. The diversion succeeds, allowing Laika to jump high into the air, readying for the decisive strike. She yells out the name of her technique, the Thunder Spirit Broadsword Art. With all her strength, she plummets from the sky with a divine thunder strike, striking the golem directly. The impact generates a brilliant explosion of light and energy that obliterates the surrounding area. Her sword remains embedded in the ground, highlighting the immense power she unleashed in the strike. Once the chaos subsides, Lengus inquires about her well-being, but she has exhausted her strength. Concerned for Raymond, she learns he is unharmed and withstood the blow. However, just as she proposes returning to base, the golem reemerges, remaining upright. The creature's hand reaches out for Langus, who attempts to shield himself with his spear. Ultimately, the golem seizes Laika, leaving Lengus in despair on the ground. Laika feels frustrated with herself for lowering her defenses since the beast remains capable of movement. The team is astonished that the golem remains upright despite everything that has happened. Rising from the ground, Lengus shouts angrily, demanding that the creature release Laika. However, the golem disregards the boy and throws Laika away with all its might. He observes the situation in anguish, shouting his friend's name with all his might. Suddenly, a quick flash darts by and tears the golem's arm away in one swift strike. The creature's arm drops to the floor, still grasping a bewildered Laika. Subsequently, a tree strikes the golem directly as it hurtles forward. Lengus rushes to assist Laika, both puzzled about what just occurred. Out of nowhere, Zeke shows up beaming, inquiring about the commotion happening. Surprised by the voice, they quickly turn around to confirm the identity of the speaker. He arrives with enthusiasm and inquires about the large clay doll nearby. The scene shifts back to when Zeke spotted a distant flash of lightning. He senses Laika's energy and sprints to assist her team in their battle. He believes her group is skilled, but doubts they can manage a 3-star beast. To reach them more quickly, he opts to employ a new technique he recently acquired at the academy. The hero gets ready, then swiftly strikes his hand forcefully against the ground. He seizes a massive tree with both hands, preparing himself for the unthinkable. He yells with all his strength, channeling his energy to uproot the tree from the ground. With a mighty roar, our hero effortlessly tosses the enormous trunk into the air as though it were weightless. He feels pleased with the outcome and remarks on how enjoyable it was to apply the technique. This is described as the dragon's nurturing technique, instructing on harnessing the body's energy. Zeke considers this ideal, as he struggled with long-range attacks in his previous life. However, he realizes that time is of the essence and begins running once more to reach the destination swiftly. In the present, Langus and Laika are astonished, calling out Zeke's name. Our hero shows up grinning widely, nonchalantly inquiring if everyone is doing alright. Langus frantically gestures at the golem, yet Zeke is unaware of its nature and refers to it as a puppet. Zeke inspects the being, noting its oddity, but the golem is already rushing toward him with great speed. The stone giant strikes with a forceful punch, targeting Zeke's core. However, with a grin, Zeke halts the attack using just one hand, remarking on the toughness of its exterior. He adds that winning in the usual manner would be dull, and then flings the creature's arm away. Observing this, Laika and Langus perceive Zeke as reckless and fail to grasp his tranquility. At that moment, the golem lifts its arms once more, and our hero notices its surprising speed. Zeke, with his shining golden eyes, gets ready to witness the monster's true power. The golem strikes once more, yet our hero evades beneath it with remarkable agility. The punch strikes the ground, forming a crater and demonstrating that the threat is genuine. Zeke merely grins and warns the group to step back, as things are about to turn chaotic. The team promptly complies and retreats to create space for our hero to engage. He retrieves the stone arm he had severed earlier and raises it overhead. With a battle cry, Zeke pivots and hurls the arm, striking the golem directly in the chest. Noticing the outer shell's formidable strength, he decides to investigate if the interior is equally robust. With his fist aglow, he charges in to test the creature's durability with a powerful strike. Zeke employs the first form of his martial art, the Dragon Destroyer, to launch his assault. This technique, known as explosion, dismantles the golem from within rather than breaking it apart externally. With the creature vanquished, he revels in the success of his strategy and the newfound excitement of the battle. The scene transitions to a forest view, indicating time has elapsed since the battle. Zeke appears irritated inside, questioning the reason for his summons. The 1-month test concluded without further issues following the golem assault. Zeke's class faced a 30% casualty rate, yet the ordeal ultimately strengthened their resolve. Several of the survivors received 1 star, and shortly after, Zeke was called by the big boss. As he walks with Freya, she instructs him to refer to the leader as Chief Lord. She cautions him that his behavior during the exam is what led to this situation. The instructor yells that he assaulted the veterans, an act unprecedented for any newcomer, because, due to him, the veterans received no orbs and must retake the exam now. Freya inhales deeply and advises him to adjust his tone prior to meeting the Lord. They reach a massive door, watched over by 2 stern soldiers standing guard. Freya instructs Zeke to act appropriately, but he simply inquires why. With a dark presence, it's evident he is vulnerable, even though he is merely a child. The instructor cautions that she doesn't want that occurring under her supervision. At that moment, Freya taps on the door, ready to enter the Almighty's chamber. She declares her presence, saying she is reporting to the Lord as instructed. The door swings open as Zeke enters with the instructor, his face serious. The boy gazes forward, displaying no hint of fear. Upon entering the room, Freya declares that she has brought the young Lord Zeke for the meeting. Balza Eldragon, seated at the desk, halts his writing and fixes the boy with a fierce glare from his red eyes. With a firm tone, he directly asks Zeke why he assaulted the veterans. Zeke, weary of the repetitive tale, inquires whether he was meant to strike. The leader is shocked by the reply, finding it hard to accept what he heard. Zeke states that the sole rule was to stay alive, allowing him to do anything he pleased throughout the month. Freya is enraged by the boy's boldness in defying the family's leader. She struggles to comprehend his nature, taken aback by the demeanor of young Lord Zeke. Balza shoots a venomous glare at the boy, channeling all his fury. He then emits a malevolent dragon's aura, creating overwhelming tension in the room. Freya collapses to her knees, convinced Zeke is on the verge of death, yet Zeke remains calm, hands in his pockets, utterly unaffected by the oppressive atmosphere. He feels frustrated with his body, urging it to cease responding to the Lord's intimidation. The family leader grows increasingly furious, realizing that his aura had no impact at all. Zeke inquires if he was called for this reason alone, while Balza insists on understanding how he accomplished it. The Lord reveals that the report indicates he easily overcame veterans and a golem. Furious, he questions how a bastard like Zeke acquired such immense power so quickly. Zeke subsequently inquires about the source of his power, creating a tense atmosphere. With a smirk, he responds that the sole reason is that he is just being himself. They lock eyes in a remarkable display of power. Balza labels him insolent but concedes to offer a reward for his victory over the golem. Freya's mouth hangs open, confused about why he's being rewarded for his actions. These are described as age-old treasures, preserved since the era of the First Lord, Gilphus. The treasury contains mythical weapons, potions, and unique relics from antiquity. Access to these locations is highly restricted, with entry granted only to select individuals. Freya questions how, despite his disrespect, he was deemed exceptional by the Lord. However, Balza brushes them off, while Zeke expresses his desire to continue the conversation. Freya quickly seizes him, exclaiming that it's a tremendous privilege to be awarded by the leader. She begins pulling Zeke from the room, expressing gratitude to the Lord for his presence. At that moment, Balza interjects, stating he has one final thing to tell the boy. Zeke cautions him that as long as he continues to suppress his emotions, he will never attain true strength. The Lord is furious with his boldness, and Freya yells at Zeke to be quiet and go away. In the room by himself, Balza ponders the significance of the boy's presence. Freya is outside, panicking and struggling to comprehend the protagonist's behavior. She shouts at him, demanding to know what he was thinking to disrespect the Lord like that. Zeke simply responds that he couldn't resist, increasing the instructor's anxiety further. She is confused, yet he clarifies that the Lord is indeed his biological father. Freya comes to the conclusion that he is unusual and earnestly inquires about his true identity. Zeke, he gazes at Freya, reiterating her inquiry about his true identity. With a self-assured grin, he replies that he has already stated it. He is just himself. Freya becomes quiet, attempting to comprehend the behavior of this boy who challenges all reason. It is said they consumed dragon's blood, explaining the Lord's immense power. She can't comprehend how Zeke managed the pressure, and he inquires if something is amiss. The instructor concludes that she must verify his birth records afterward. She then questions which reward he prefers, but Zeke attempts to request both options. Having limited options, he claims he favors knowledge since he must expand his learning. Zeke reflects that he has limited knowledge of this time period and must learn about the past 1,000 years. Longus becomes extremely enthusiastic, while Zeke is puzzled by his excitement. His friend clarifies that this opportunity allows them to explore even more advanced martial arts. Noticing Zeke's concern, he inquires about any time constraints. Leica clarifies that they can peruse any material, but are limited to selecting just one book. She then steps closer, questioning whether it's accurate that he opted for the Dragon's Hall. He reaffirms his decision, stating that currently, knowledge holds greater value. Leica notes that the books on the second floor are significantly rarer, highlighting the substantial difference. She boasts that her technique is unmatched, yet Zeke isn't paying attention. At that moment, a guard arrives and tells them that they are permitted to stay in the hall for only 5 hours. The team questions whether 5 hours will suffice to accomplish all tasks. Leica proposes they select a book first and then proceed to read the remaining ones. As they step inside, towering shelves confront them, making it clear that locating one book will be challenging. The group is in awe, finally grasping the reason behind the name, the famous Dragon's Hall. Even the protagonist concedes that the location exceeds his expectations. Smiling, he becomes eager to discover if there's any information here that might astonish him. Zeke strolls down the hallway, choosing to fully embrace his time and savor the reading experience. As Zeke reads the books, he suddenly yells in shock at his discoveries. He attempts to steady himself and comprehend the information, levitating multiple books around him. At that moment, he discovers chaos and magic, feeling inundated by an influx of new knowledge. Worn out, he falls to the ground, reflecting on how 1,000 years feels like an eternity. He then understands that throughout this period, his world has intertwined with another. It is stated that 900 years prior, a dimensional rift emerged, introducing the Chaos Realm. In this alternate realm, creatures roamed freely, while the Eldragon family battled them. Consequently, 4 formidable fighters from that realm joined his family through marriage. He recalls Lyca's powerful presence and the eerie fog from a creature. The protagonist realizes he failed to recognize them because their auras belonged to into another realm. What intrigues him the most is this concept of magic, an entirely novel method. Desperate, he looks for the book that instructs on using magic, but it's nowhere to be found. Out of nowhere, a strange voice instructs him to silence within the castle library. He feels no presence and questions whether this could indeed be what they call magic. However, he solely senses basic energy and cannot detect any unique strength in the voice. Zeke is leisurely reading when he unexpectedly senses an unusual energy emanating from one of the books. Suddenly, a flurry of books begins soaring toward him, startling him greatly. However, he soon understands it's a method for relocating items and becomes extremely thrilled by the finding. He shouts that he cannot remain silent about something so fascinating and demands the voice's owner to reveal themselves. We then observe a hooded figure on the upper level manipulating energy threads. At that moment, the energy threads ensnare Zeke, leaving him completely unaware of anything. The announcement declares the library's closing, and he is lifted upward by the enchanted threads. He is unceremoniously ejected from the Dragon Hall without warning. He collapses to the floor, catching sight of the enigmatic figure, unsure of what he just witnessed. He gestures and shouts for them to demonstrate the technique as Langus inquires about the incident. Laika inquires about his actions, but Zeke simply replies that he became a bit too enthusiastic inside. Langus eagerly reveals the book he chose, the Cloud Water Spear technique. Celine has also selected a martial arts manual, the Windflower Sword technique. Raymond received the Guardian's Shield technique, a defensive style of his family. Zeke laughs, recognizing that these are all techniques he invented in his previous life. Zeke pivots and inquires which book Laika selected. She reveals that she chose the Heavy Wave Broadsword technique, an enhanced edition by the 15th Lord. He becomes reflective, recalling that this lord also invented the Dragon's Breath combat art. He remembers observing various methods he developed, many of which have enhanced iterations. He ponders whether this lord was responsible for it all and finds the entire scenario captivating. He smiles, realizing that school is actually much more engaging than it initially appeared. Zeke gazes at the academy, eagerly anticipating what lies ahead. The scene then shifts forward in time, revealing that 5 years have gone by. A person strolls through the academy's corridors, with only their feet visible. Laika is searching for the gang, and a freshman informs her that Zeke and the others are at practice. She expresses her annoyance, remarking that they are training once more, as usual. With that, the girl, now 12, makes her way to the training area. There, the entire group, older now, practices together as they did in their youth. Zeke, also 12, stands before his friends with a more mature and assured demeanor. In a spacious hall, sunlight pours through the windows, intensifying the atmosphere. An urgent message is being drafted, alerting that a unique rift has unexpectedly emerged. In the office, the leader inquires about the accuracy of the information, and the messenger promptly affirms it. Commander Ein of the Black Dragon Corps elaborates that the likelihood of discovering magic water there is significant. Balza ponders the information, already knowing that the rift's position posed significant issues. It is noted that enchanted water provides the ability to wield magic, altering the war's trajectory. Consequently, numerous violent conflicts have erupted over the dominance of the magical springs. Yet, within this magical era, the Eldragon family's domain lacked such fountains. Their sole means of acquiring water involved overcoming one of these perilous special rifts. Consequently, the Eldragon family had a limited number of mages, experienced individuals who had once triumphed over these rifts. Upon returning to the office, the commander cautions that the rift's position is a significant issue. It emerged in the lush dragon forest, which stretches into hostile lands. The other section of the forest is claimed by the perilous House Cerberus, their fierce adversaries. The commander unfolds a map, revealing that the rift's position poses the greatest threat. Its zone of influence has expanded, invading House Cerberus's domain. The commander cautions that the Cerberus will detect the rift, and Balza concurs they will realize it shortly. He anticipates a territorial conflict that will limit both parties. Balza concludes they need to move swiftly before their foes find the rift. He commands that all dragon nests be informed as a selection trial is set to commence. The perspective shifts, and Laika observes Zeke, noting his intense training. Suddenly, 3 students launch an assault on Zeke simultaneously, each employing their strongest technique. With a spark in his eyes, Zeke prepares for the onslaught, confronting the 3 strikes directly. He then deflects all the attacks simultaneously, demonstrating his incredible power. Zeke smiles as he praises the attack but highlights their errors. He advises Langus that his tension is undermining the effectiveness of his spear technique. Regarding Celine, he cautions that concentrating solely on speed diminishes the impact of her strikes. Zeke commends Raymond for his impressive defensive skills, but encourages him to be more aggressive and embrace attacking as well. Meanwhile, Instructor Freya observes from afar, deeming the entire scenario utterly insane. She is astonished that Zeke is is enduring the hits without resorting to his powers, labeling it as madness. Zeke exclaims that this is an essential part of their training, effortlessly evading a classmate's strike. He then demonstrates the outcome, stating that their bodies have strengthened even without relying on their powers. Laika becomes frustrated with the situation, finding it odd that the children are continuously attacking. The students are baffled by Zeke's endurance, viewing his resilience as a puzzling enigma. However, Laika cautions against comparing Zeke to humans, disclosing his former nickname, Monster. Zeke asks her if she wants to train, but Laika responds that she has something to share first. She tells him he will soon meet the students from the other dragon's nests. Lungus is taken aback by the revelation, although he had anticipated it would occur eventually. Celine inquires whether it's for the upcoming exam, but even Laika is unaware of all the specifics. Zeke then asks how she is aware of these details, and she replies that she observes the instructors. He feels ashamed for not having noticed, a failure for a leadership contender. Laika bids farewell and advises him to stay cautious, particularly regarding a man from the West Wing. She clarifies that this individual is among the other contenders for the family's leadership. Zeke responds with a smirk, expressing his eagerness for the meeting. Several days later, all the students assemble in the courtyard, anticipating the examination. The students murmured quietly to each other, anxious about the impending events in the courtyard. In the background, a faction from a different wing observed everything with an attitude of derision and arrogance. Zeke informs his team that this is connected to the warning they received from Laika. Hearing this, the students start moving toward the big gate, waiting for instructions. Instructor Freya then arrives, instructing everyone to be quiet and focus. The students become quiet and stand attentively, looking at the instructor earnestly. Freya glances around at everyone, complimenting their appearance before revealing the major news. She announces that in 3 days, they will engage in battle with the rival dragon's nests. Instructor Freya affirms with a nod, confirming the fight is set for 3 days from now. The students are astonished, as such fights typically occurred only during the graduation examination. Freya mentions she can't clarify everything, but those who endure will receive a unique task. Zeke feels thrilled by the concept, seeing it as intriguing to battle for such a vital cause. She clarifies that all 4 wings will nominate 7 fighters for an elimination contest. The instructor subsequently instructs them to finalize their 7 representatives by day's end. The veterans express their anger over the notion, doubting the capabilities of the rookies. They view themselves as the sole fighters, labeling the younger ones as weaklings. With a gesture, Freya departs, instructing them to resolve the matter swiftly without providing any further information. A seasoned veteran named Rick yells that the 7 fighters will exclusively be selected from the veterans. However, Laika protests, insisting that rookies should be included as well. In response, Rick smirks mockingly, referring to her as Lady Laika to taunt her. He claims she is wrong, as strength is what truly matters, not noble lineage. Laika then plants her foot strongly on the ground, unleashing all her energy in one powerful surge. With a golden glow enveloping her, she inquires what he understands about strength. The veterans are taken aback by her strength, exclaiming that she is already a 3-star. At that moment, Zeke steps forward and concurs, stating that the decision should rely solely on power. Laika then taunts Rick, questioning whether there are 7 veterans stronger than her. Another veteran interjects, yelling that the rookies lack strength, but Zeke tells him to be quiet. Furious, the veteran demands to know what he said, and Zeke reiterates that he's being too loud. Zeke shoots a fierce look at the man, questioning whether the veterans view rookies as mere trash. With a sly grin, he proposes they battle until just 7 remain standing. Laika considers the proposal too extreme, arguing it would create significant issues. Instead, she proposes a more equitable approach, an open preliminary round for those willing to volunteer. She asserts that if they believe in their abilities, they should have no issue facing anyone, right? Rick consents to the idea, though he feels the entire situation is pointless. Laika then looks at Zeke, who quickly agrees to join the preliminaries. To everyone's astonishment, he also urges Lengas, Celine, and Raymond to participate. They are frightened by the suggestion, but Zeke insists it's time to demonstrate the fruits of their training. Celine experiences immense pressure, yet the team resolves to put forth their utmost effort. Laika subsequently inquires if anyone else wishes to attempt, yet no one stirs, fearing defeat. Observing this, Zeke believes that battling more powerful opponents is the ideal path to grow. Laika then faces her group and states that, for the moment, they have something to observe. She confronts the veterans, expressing her desire to witness their true strength in action. The veteran complains that the rookie's obstinacy is frustrating, doubting their chances of victory. The audience urges them to take it easy, as aside from Laika, they are merely 2-star boys. Zeke perceives their unease but reminds them that they have trained together for 5 long years. He then praises their performance and encourages them to have a bit more faith. With their spirits lifted, the rookie trio agrees and gets ready for the upcoming battle. However, the veteran grows impatient with the hold-up, shouting for them to come and understand their role. From a balcony, students from a different wing observe the scene, confused about what is happening. After the clash, Langus is taken aback by the result, believing they were too formidable. With a beaming smile, Z commends everyone, stating they performed wonderfully in the fight. It's evident that Langus has become quicker at evading and spotting openings in his opponents. Celine has now fully mastered her sword technique, executing multiple strikes in succession, while Raymond has refined his strategy, skillfully utilizing his sword and shield. Zeke reviews the outcomes and believes they require additional fights to boost their confidence. The attention shifts to Laika, who has significantly increased her strength as time passed. The students on the balcony are shocked, stuttering that it cannot possibly be real. With her rival down, Laika puts away her sword, declaring that it's sufficient. Rick, furious, jabs a finger at her, exclaiming that losing to 2 stars is unthinkable. However, Zeke shoots him a chilling glance, remarking that he's too naive to maintain such beliefs. He clarifies that age and star count are merely superficial markers. He cautions that genuine strength is determined by the victor, while the defeated are deemed weak. The veteran shouts at Zeke, calling him a fool and insisting the stars hold power. With a menacing gaze, Zeke declares that regardless of stars, anyone will perish if their heart is shattered. He advises the veteran to confront the truth, as true strength lies in the capacity to prevail. However, Rick refuses to accept it and shouts at him to be quiet, warning that he won't hold back during the fight. Zeke cautions that he's weary of the discussions, emphasizing that now only the 2 of them remain in the courtyard. With a grin, he dares him to demonstrate the martial arts he's honed for years. The seasoned fighter, enraged by the provocation, shouts for him to brace for impact. He then lunges at Zeke with all his might, employing his powerful fist technique. Zeke effortlessly evades the attack and delivers a powerful punch straight to the veteran's face. The impact sends the veteran sprawling, leaving Zeke triumphant. With a thumbs up and a grin, Zeke commends the veteran for his training. He remains there, reveling in his victory over the man who is now on the ground. Laika observes the situation, feeling it odd that he's complimenting someone he just defeated. The focus then moves to the West Wing, where multiple students are injured and lying in the courtyard. Out of nowhere, a fighter grabs an unusual dagger that emits a greenish glow. Then Vanille is introduced, another leader candidate who believes everyone present is utterly incompetent. A subordinate approaches him with respect, referring to him as Lord Vanille. The assistant, Alan, informs that the selection process is finished and the chosen individuals are prepared. Included in that chosen group is Retin, sporting his usual arrogant expression. Vanille then spots the boy, astonished that a newcomer has already achieved a 3-star rank. Smiling, he expresses his admiration for strong individuals and desires him as his subordinate. Retin feels exhilarated by the offer, expressing gratitude and bowing in appreciation. He then contemplates that, with Lord Vanille leading, the West Wing is destined for victory. He envisions Vanille as the future leader, destined to elevate their group's prestige. Consequently, he would serve as the trusted aide to the new head of the influential family. Alan steps forward, stating he has significant news to share with his master, Vanille. He leans in and quietly tells him that Lady Laika will be part of the East Wing's team. Vanille becomes extremely irritated by the news, referring to the girl as a meddlesome brat. However, he remains indifferent, claiming her skills are irrelevant since they are destined to win. Alan observes his master, who is resolute in demonstrating his value to his siblings. Vanille then unfurls his weapon, a bladed fan, already contemplating his grand ambition. With a wicked grin, he assures himself that the role of leader will belong to him. The scene transitions to a crowded coliseum where all the students have assembled for the major selection event. A cluster of students observes the action intently from the bleachers. Lungus is taken aback by the crowd size, and Laika clarifies that they've arrived from all areas. She notes that the student count has already decreased considerably due to the exam eliminations. At that moment, Lungus recalls that those who fail, such as his father, are termed pseudo-dragons. Laika observes that he seems upset and attempts to lift his spirits with a reassuring pat on the back. She reminds him that they were selected as representatives and should take pride in that. At that moment, a student inquires about Zeke's silence. He responds that it's nothing, explaining he was merely assessing the strength of all the students around him. The others admire his skill, believing it to be an unattainable feat. Zeke quietly watches his classmates, reflecting on how much has shifted recently. Out of nowhere, the upperclassmen from the East Wing sprint toward the group, calling out. The upperclassman shares that following that altercation, he and his group entirely transformed their mindset. He mentions that despite his humble origins, he now genuinely admires the strongest individuals. Zeke feels a bit taken aback by this remark, yet he views this shift positively. He assesses the abilities of those around him, observing that, apart from his own team, they all possess 3 stars. His attention shifts to the other students, where he perceives the energy of each rival present. He realizes that some competitors are already operating on a different plane, which he finds quite intriguing. Longus was restless, attempting to remain composed before the event began. Out of nowhere, a blonde woman leaps onto Laika's back, calling her name. Zeke is utterly perplexed, observing the situation from afar, unable to grasp what's happening. The woman embraces Laika closely, inquiring if she's alright and whether anyone has troubled her. The group inquires about her identity, and Laika presents her cousin, Sandy Toporna. It is disclosed that Sandy is the offspring of the leader of the influential Toporna family, a noble lineage. The trio is stunned upon hearing the name, realizing she belongs to one of the 4 great houses. Sandy inquires about the children, to which Laika responds that they are her friends. With a sarcastic tone, she doubts the group's capabilities as she hears the response. She subsequently wonders if they possess the strength to support a future leader as companions. However, Zeke interrupts the discussion, stating that they'll discover the answer only through combat. Sandy inquires about his identity, and Laika presents him as Zeke, the alleged illegitimate son. Zeke observes his friends with a faint smile, sensing their confidence. Sandy glances at him with disdain, remarking that she never anticipated an illegitimate son would manage to endure. Laika, she becomes upset and tells her cousin to cease, but Sandy merely cautions that he is a competitor. She goes on to claim that the East Wing's team lacks strength, but Zeke advises her to tread carefully. Her eyes blazing with fury, she demands to know what he said, being a worthless coward. She glares at him and shouts, questioning whether he has the audacity to respond to her in that manner. However, Zeke remains unfazed and coolly states that it was merely a straightforward piece of advice. Out of nowhere, Aegis Van Blade shows up, warning them against causing issues with the other teams. Lungus instantly recognizes him, but Zeke appears indifferent to his arrival. Sandy advises him to refrain from involvement, yet Aegis cautions that the selection is about to start. The focus then moves to the arena's center, where an instructor is ready to speak. Surrounded by a golden glow, he commands everyone's attention, creating complete silence throughout the Colosseum. The group of newcomers stands tall, confronting the upcoming challenge with determined faces. Laika and Sandy cease their dispute and focus on the significant announcement being made. The students quiet down, filled with anticipation for the selection match to commence. Next, the captain of the Golden Dragon Order, referred to as the Educator of Dread, is presented. In the arena's center, the instructor declares that the selection matches are set to begin at last. He clarifies that the competition will follow an elimination format, featuring one-on-one battles among the 4 wings. The guideline is straightforward. The first team to conquer 4 adversaries will be the ultimate champion. The instructor cautions that the order of fighters is tactical, and those chosen will undertake a unique mission. Zeke grins, fully aware that this task holds great significance for the Eldragon family. Excels in the mission will significantly impact the family's future. For leadership candidates such as Laika and Vanille, this represents a move towards gaining power. To determine the matchups, the instructor summons the representatives to select a stone from a box. Vanille, the West Wing representative, steps forward with his usual blank expression. He then reaches into the box and retrieves one of the stones, displaying no feelings whatsoever. The stone he holds radiates a green light, disclosing the matchup for his initial battle. Holding the stone, the instructor instructs him to go back to his position and await the signal to begin. Laika stiffens at the scene, immediately identifying that man from afar. Vanille pivots and offers a wicked grin, gazing at her team with immense assurance. Zeke inquires if she recognizes him, and Laika affirms he is the opposing candidate. She subsequently discloses the rival's complete name, Vanille Fafnir Eldragon, quite a fearsome individual. Zeke assesses the circumstances, swiftly understanding that Vanille and the West Wing hold great power. The other wings appeared well-trained too, yet their strength was noticeably different. Amidst the team, he spots Retin, a familiar face he hadn't encountered in quite some time. He recalls the child performed well on the test and that he worked diligently to reach this point. Abruptly, the West Wing group focuses on a student from the East Wing. Retin's expression turns to fury, questioning why that child was present. Soon, other students begin yelling, asking why the loser Langus is present. Langus hangs his head, disheartened by their remarks, while his friends check on him. He brushes it off, claiming all is well, yet his gaze remains fixed on the crowd, revealing his sadness. The instructor names the North Wing, and Aegis declares it's his team's turn. Immediately after, the South Wing representative approaches to select their stone from the box. After the South Wing selection is finished, the instructor finally announces the East Wing's delegate. Laika informs Zeke that it's his turn, but he appears taken aback and puzzled. Feeling uncomfortable, he suggests that the younger members should go instead, but she argues that he is the strongest. He notes notes that they are of the same age and steps up to represent the entire team. Sandy is enraged, shouting about why the illegitimate son went instead of Laika. However, Laika states that he is the strongest even without having 3 stars. Her cousin cautions her that this struggle is about power, but Laika responds that it's okay. With a self-assured grin, she asserts that ultimately they possess great strength. The instructor instructs the representatives to focus their energy into the stones they selected. Zeke focuses on the stone he holds, ready to channel his energy into it. At that moment, the other stones illuminated in red and blue, showcasing everyone's energy. The stone emits a blue glow, prompting him to break into a confident smile. The instructor declares that the initial match will feature the East Wing against the North Wing, while the subsequent match will pit the West Wing against the South Wing, determining the semifinals. The camera shifts its focus to the North Wing team as they get ready for the initial battle. One of their combatants resembled a beast, possessing a stare that could intimidate anyone. Laika's team is taken aback, and Lengiz inquires if that individual is a student too. She feels anxious about the possibility of having to confront her cousin Sandy immediately. Sandy unleashes her golden aura, stating this is an excellent opportunity for Laika to awaken. She subsequently gestures to her team and threatens to overpower her as a reminder of her position. However, Laika simply flashes a confident grin and shouts that she is ready for it. Zeke confronts Aegis, expressing his eagerness for the battle, and his opponent readily concurs. With the stones illuminating, the two lock eyes, and Aegis declares his eagerness for the battle ahead. Vanille looks at the southern team with disdain, causing the rival group to become uneasy. It was then revealed that the initial significant battle will take place between the East Wing and the North Wing. The North Wing team appeared quite assured, as though they had already secured victory. However, Zeke's squad was prepared and on alert to tackle any obstacles that arose. Rick gathers his bravery and calls out to Zeke, promising their triumph. Laika is concerned about his anxiety, and Zeke acknowledges that he is quite tense. The instructor gets ready to commence the fight, inquiring if both teams are prepared. With a loud shout, he signals, and the competition's first battle finally kicks off. The adversary from the northern side makes a swift motion, readying a unique technique. Without hesitation, Rick lunges ahead with all his strength, shouting and unleashing his aura in a forceful strike. Zeke observes the battle, contemplating the outcome, as anything is possible. However, he boasts that his triumph is the sole certainty in this situation. Setting the jokes aside, he concentrates on the battle, scrutinizing each action. He believes that if Rick competes as he usually does, the victory is almost assured for. However, Laika is concerned about the stress of performing in front of such a large audience for the first time. Rick attempts to resist, yet he is severely overpowered and unable to defend himself adequately. Meanwhile, Zeke simply grins, believing that those elements alone do not determine the outcome of the battle. He gazes at his rivals, already aware that Sandy and Aegis stand out as exceptions, then clarified that they are both close to achieving the 4-star level. Zeke believes that battling his cousin will serve as excellent motivation for Laika. With Rick down, the judge declares that the first round has been claimed by the North Wing. The following student, Merlin, feels extremely anxious, yet she attempts to soothe herself to compete. However, the North Wing prevails once more, causing the East Wing team to feel quite disheartened by the outcome. The two defeated participants express regret, but Zeke claims they were consumed by the arena. He assures them not to be concerned, as a life-or-death struggle would present a different situation. Zeke beams as he shares that this is a venue for discovering and challenging their own abilities. His encouragement lifts the spirits of both, but after 2 defeats, the upcoming match is vital. Zeke then looks at Langus, who shouts at him to stop, increasing his anxiety. The boy started sweating coldly, as the pressure was intense and his opponent was frightening. He was a massive figure wielding a large sword, emanating a terrifying presence of strength. He gazes at his rival, believing this is the most intimidating senior he has ever encountered. Hearing this, Langus begins to weep, shouting that the seniors from his wing weren't that unattractive. Zeke is irritated, believing his friend is quite a challenge. He instructs Langus to observe the opponent and inquires about the weapon the individual is wielding. The boy examines the large man closely and responds that he believes it's a sword. With a smile, Zeke advises him to focus solely on the sword and nothing else. He clarifies that he must evade the strike, retreat to defense, and capitalize on the opportunity. Zeke instructs him to concentrate solely on the weapon, just as he consistently does during training. Upon receiving this advice, Langus's eyes brighten, and he can finally focus. Zeke observes his concentration and believes the boy merely requires some direction. The two confront each other in the arena, and Langus contemplates how much he will evolve. The audience bursts into laughter over the size disparity, yelling that the slender man has no hope. However, Langus remains unfazed, his stare icy and entirely fixated on his opponent. The instructor observes the two combatants in the arena and signals for the fight to commence at last. The large man then lunges ahead with full force, employing his sword skill to initiate the assault. With intense concentration, Langus readies himself to evade the blow from the massive sword. He skillfully evades just as his rival's sword slices a deep gouge into the earth below. The large man shouts angrily, cautioning the boy that he won't be able to evade him again. In response, he strikes again, but Langus readies himself to counter with his spear. Celine panics, yelling that the foe was approaching Langus rapidly. Zeke simply urges her to relax and encourages everyone to gaze into their friend's eyes. The boy slips into a surreal concentration, his eyes shining with a deep blue hue. By doing this, he evades another strike, entirely concentrated on his rival's actions. The large man subsequently sets up a wide-range assault with his sword dance method. Yet, Langus engages his spear technique, readying to execute his top move. Using his water skill, he successfully deflects all the sword strikes simultaneously. The adversary is stunned by the sight, unable to comprehend that the boy countered his strike. Langus seizes the opportunity and prepares his spear for an accurate counterstrike. He employs his most powerful technique, breaching the large opponent's defense with one strike. The senior is propelled backward by the blow, landing on the ground, utterly vanquished by the spear. The instructor watches the fight's conclusion and, in a solemn tone, declares the match over. With the large opponent down, he announces that the East Wing secures victory for the third round. Langus ultimately feels at ease, grateful for his eventual victory. Zeke smiles contentedly from afar, already contemplating the upcoming actions for the team. He then looks at his team and inquires if they are prepared to initiate the comeback. Langus' triumph sparked a resurgence in the East Wing, achieving multiple consecutive victories. Celine was the next competitor and she achieved a win for her team. Soon after, it was Raymond's turn, and he easily overcame his opponent. That meant they required just one additional victory to guarantee their place in the finals. The sixth match commences, and Laika ultimately confronts her formidable cousin, Sandy. Sandy expresses surprise at the turnaround, while Laika cautions that her team is formidable. At this moment, her cousin recognizes she misjudged Laika's teammates, admitting their strength. However, she cautions that this wasn't the actual issue, revealing her strong aura. She states that to lead effectively, an individual's personal power must surpass that of any ally. Sandy shouts, expressing concern about Laika being just the second strongest member of the team. Laika smiles, indicating her complete understanding of the situation while glancing at her team. She shoots a fierce look at Zeke from afar, cautioning that she remains determined to become the leader. She then drives her sword into the earth, ready to battle with all her might. With the blade shining, she declares that with her present power, she can overcome her cousin. Sandy gazes at her intently and responds that she now truly comprehends the circumstances. Charges at Laika with all its might as she readies herself to counter the electric strike. The crowd is astounded by her swiftness, exclaiming that Sandy has seemingly disappeared. However, she materializes in midair, urging Laika to demonstrate her true power at that moment. The two then engage in a fierce sword clash, unleashing a burst of golden energy upon impact. Sandy, using her increased strength, pushes her cousin back until she kneels. She maintains her unyielding assault, leaving Laika entirely trapped and on the defensive. Aegis observes the battle from afar, believing that Sandy has gained the advantage. He starts to question how much longer Laika can endure this pressure. Sandy employs her thunder technique, striking Laika with an incredibly swift hit. Celine and Merlin cry out in anguish, fearful for Lady Laika's fate. However, Laika successfully retreats and reassures herself that she's okay. All she needs is to inhale deeply. Though injured and sweating profusely, her eyes stayed resolute and brimming with determination. The team remarks that Sandy is overly powerful and that she trained Laika during her childhood. Despite being battered, Laika clenches her teeth and prepares her sword for a counterstrike. However, Sandy evades and notes that her cousin's tendency to strike impulsively remains unchanged. Laika unleashes her lightning strike, her teeth gritted in fury and determination. However, Sandy unleashes an even more powerful strike, aiming to conclude the battle immediately. The two forces clash, resulting in a burst of golden lightning that lights up the arena. Laika cries out in agony, struck by her cousin's immense strength. Sandy, with a frosty gaze, believes her cousin, as anticipated, would not emerge victorious. She later laments that if Laika had visited her wing, none of this would have occurred. Despite her severe injuries, Laika supports herself with her sword and shouts that she isn't finished yet. However, Sandy advises her to surrender, claiming that with her current strength, victory is impossible. She recalls her father, believing she ought to have compelled Laika to accompany her. Laika rises, her sword illuminated, locking eyes with her cousin. Sandy labels her as obstinate but resolves to conclude this battle definitively. She then then lunges forward, yelling that her cousin will understand her lesson through this strike. Laika attempts to shield herself, but the intensity of the electric assault overwhelms her. She narrowly deflects the strike, yet is pulled back by the force. The two then confront one another in the center of the ravaged arena, surrounded by golden lightning. Laika cries out in agony from the strike, impaled by the energy of her cousin's blade. In that instant, Sandy vaults into the air, ready to execute the decisive attack. The team becomes increasingly anxious at the location, and Celine cautions that Lady Laika is in danger. Zeke merely smirks, claiming that Laika is on the verge of exceeding her limits. With her sword radiating light, Sandy shouts that her cousin must surrender at last. Laika clenches her teeth and lifts her sword to block the impending strike. Sandy then unleashes her secret move, a celestial thunder that strikes the arena with force. The audience goes quiet, pondering whether the battle has truly reached its end. And once the chaos subsides, Sandy emerges triumphant, her sword shimmering with electricity. Despite being battered and bleeding, Laika remained on her feet. She smiles at her cousin, recognizing the strength of her swordsmanship skills. Sandy is stunned, struggling to comprehend how she endured the last strike. Laika clarifies that her former self would have failed, but circumstances have shifted. She recalls the past 5 years and the training she underwent alongside Zeke. Smiling, she cautions that the battle is far from finished, as she's only beginning. The scene briefly shifts back, revealing Zeke's concern for Laika prior to the battle. She indicates that Sandy was the person who educated her on the Thunder Sword entirely. Her cousin acted as a mentor, guiding Laika through all her uncertainties and questions. She admits that, despite 5 years, she has never managed to defeat Sandy. Laika experienced insecurity as her cousin also grew stronger alongside her. Zeke clicks his fingers, already devising a plan to assist his friend in winning. He gives her a gentle pat and reminds her to recall all the training they've completed. At his statement, Laika's gaze sharpens as she recalls each day from the past 5 years. Multiple scenes depict her intense training alongside Zeke and the team. She grimaces, prompting Zeke to inquire whether those training memories were genuinely as unpleasant as they seemed. He points out that her tendency to become overly emotional and lose concentration during a fight is a bad habit. For the last 5 years, he has trained her to maintain her composure, even if he was strict. Zeke then winks, claiming that's the appeal of his training approach. He informs her that through this training, she will be able to observe her cousin calmly during the fight. With a gentle tap on her chest, he informs her that her real skill lies in perceiving her opponent. Laika places a hand on her chest, sensing her heart thump powerfully, brimming with confidence. Zeke smiles and tells her that she will now witness the outcomes of all that training. He claims she trained with the strongest, so she shouldn't have any concerns. Laika smiles at him, expressing her gratitude and saying she feels significantly more at ease now. He seizes the moment to express that this is the ideal opportunity for her to grow even more. He gestures toward the arena, ready to offer her one final piece of advice. He advises her to watch her cousin's technique, which will significantly enhance her strength. Sandy shoots a glare at her cousin, while Zeke insists she must take this rare chance. Laika wipes the blood from her face, stating she finally grasps her cousin's magic. She reveals that it was only by confronting the blows directly that she could uncover the truth. Sandy is puzzled by her words, and Laika rushes ahead to strike. She lunges at her cousin, her sword shimmering and poised for battle. Laika then executes a remarkable maneuver, altering her sword's path mid-air. Sandy stands stunned, recognizing that Laika hasn't halted but has intensified her assault. Consequently, Laika successfully strikes her cousin with a totally unforeseen blow. Sandy gasps in disbelief, unable to comprehend how her cousin could have landed a hit. Laika then employs her cousin's own technique, her sword buzzing with golden lightning. Sandy is taken aback, unable to grasp how her actions shifted so rapidly. At that moment, Laika delivers a swift blow, propelling her cousin backward from the force. Smiling, she discloses that she recognized the change in her cousin's rhythm. Sandy is astonished at how quickly she replicated the technique, believing it impossible. Laika's remarkable performance is met with loud cheers, and the entire team rejoices over the shift in the battle. Zeke shares that battling an opponent using the same style offers valuable insights, then verifies that Laika had perfected her cousin's method during the fight. Zeke recalls Laika's past struggles with focus, but now she is transformed entirely. With a tranquil mind, she can analyze her adversary and engage with greater strategy. Battling her cousin has allowed her to attain a new level of strength and expertise. However, Sandy rejects the idea of losing and shouts that imitation won't secure victory. She subsequently releases an incredibly strong bolt of lightning, an energy surge that engulfs the arena. Laika, despite being pushed back by the impact, finds a way to defend herself. Sandy, in disbelief, screams that she can't be bested by her cousin. Laika counters, revealing that she has trained intensely with some someone to the brink of exhaustion daily. With a fierce grin, she declares that this is her unique sword technique now. She then releases the same heavenly thunder accompanied by a surge of lightning that fills the arena. Sandy cries out in agony, struck directly by her cousin's immense strength. The arena trembles from the impact, with debris and lightning scattering in all directions. Following the explosion, Laika stands proudly, gasping for breath yet triumphant from the fierce battle. Sandy collapses to her knees, offering a weak smile and chuckling at the circumstances. Despite her bruised and battered face, she concedes that Laika has truly grown stronger. With Sandy on the floor, the judge declares the match concluded, awarding victory to the East Wing. Alan inquires about the events, while Vanille silently gazes at the victorious team. Laika returns, and her teammates celebrate her for the remarkable fight she put up. The entire team rushes to embrace her, and she expresses joy that the win occurred in her match. She considers that had she been defeated, Zeke would have been compelled to confront the perilous Aegis. The team inquires if she recognizes him, and Laika replies no, but he's quite renowned. She states that he is the most brilliant genius the Van Blade family has seen in years. Zeke shows interest, acknowledging that based on what he's observed, he's in a different league. Laika remarks that even Zeke would struggle against someone like that. Sword in hand, Aegis kept a serene smile and assured stance. Suddenly, the instructor declares that victory for the East Wing in the competition is assured. Zeke and Langus are perplexed, unsure why the battles persist. Merlin is equally baffled, as the rule stated that the contest should conclude after 4 opponents were vanquished. Zeke shifts his attention to the adversaries, attempting to discern their goal, yet he remains indifferent to it. He steps forward, a broad grin spreading across his face. His eyes sparkle with excitement as he considers that as long as he has the opportunity to battle, that's all that truly matters.